Dear listeners, thank you for your incredible support in helping our channel grow. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, so please support us by subscribing and helping us reach this milestone. Now let's start the story. Flashback. Major M. Chopper Flight. Sergeant Reynolds came back with the tracking device he recovered in Miss Sedankina's room right before our chopper landed to pick us up. I turned on the device, watched as it acquired our signals, and confirmed right away this was going to be a great find for us. And I also realized the Lance Corporal was correct when he told us we'd be a detriment to the mission. I looked at Sergeant Reynolds' blank face and remarked, "This is good as gold. I bet you're a hell of a poker player." We boarded the chopper as he grinned at me and answered, "Oh, I'm not that good." But I knew when I was being set up. I watched it track us as we traveled to the main building and remarked, "Sergeant, you're going to need to change back into your Marine gear." I thought about his clearance and knew there were areas I couldn't take him. I would need to rectify the situation since he and the Lance Corporal were now my men. Then I thought about the Lance Corporal and how lucky he and Sergeant Reynolds were that I talked the old man into assigning them to me, instead of being sent to some oblivion shithole assignment. But even more important was how lucky I was to have the two of them. They were perfect for the plans I had. You see, the Lance Corporal didn't really fit in as a Marine because he was too much a loner, and the Marines are all about being part of the team. I had read and analyzed his record, and where others missed it, I realized he'd always been a loner, and if I hadn't grabbed him now, that was going to be a huge problem down the road. Hell, the Lance Corporal's loner problem started the night he arrived at boot camp on the bus. One of the recruits' first assignments was to call home and read a script to let their family know they arrived safely. The Lance Corporal told the DI he didn't have anyone to call, which was the truth. The DI wrongly thought the Lance Corporal was lying and being a pain in the butt, so immediately he was labeled a malcontent. The DI wrote his, but until he finally called someone. I checked later and determined it was the answering machine for his family lawyer. Marine boot camp is longer than any other service's boot camp and is mainly about cultural immersion and indoctrination. It's where we instill in the recruits the Marines' warrior ethos, the importance of the team, and the way everyone is expected to conform. The Lance Corporal had no issues with the warrior ethos and the importance of the team, but he never really conformed and became part of his squad. He never developed the friendships with the rest of the squad members the DIs constantly looked for. So the DIs rode the hell out of him, thinking they would break him, but there was nothing to break. You see, I had looked at his school records and even spent some time interviewing individuals in his hometown and realized the Lance Corporal had never had a school friend in his whole life. His scumsucker father isolated and probably abused him. My greatest insight into the Lance Corporal was when I interviewed the retired lieutenant colonel and his wife, since that was where the Lance Corporal spent a significant amount of time. They were closer to being his parents than his real parents, and they confirmed the mistreatment of the L.CPL. So the DIs didn't have the whole story and gave him an extra dose of hell during boot camp, but the Lance Corporal never complained or flinched. In fact, he excelled under the pressure, and the greater the pressure, the more he excelled, and also the more he pissed off the DIs. They tried every trick in the book and even created a few new ones just for him, but as I said earlier, there was nothing to break. The DIs had decided they would fail him and his whole squad during the Crucible. The Crucible happens during week 10 of training. It's a simulated mission which requires the recruits to stay awake and functioning for 52 hours. The Crucible is designed so that no one man can complete it since it requires a dedicated team effort. To fail the Crucible either meant repeating boot camp or being kicked out of the Marines. But something amazing happened during his squad's 52 hours of the DI's Crucible from hell. The squad started to fall apart just like the DIs wanted, but then when the squad was ready to give up, the Lance Corporal took over. He wasn't even the squad leader, and helped his squad complete what the DIs had set up to be an impossible-to-complete Crucible. But it came at a great personal cost. The Lance Corporal collapsed right after he finished the run back to the base, where he spent part of the time carrying members of his squad, and spent 3 days in the infirmary. So like it or not, the Lance Corporal was going to become a Marine, but he was still a thorn in the Corps' side. The command didn't know for sure what to do with him, so they made the decision to send him off to scout sniper training, probably the best thing they could have done. I looked at Sergeant Reynolds. Now he was a different story. He was at one time one of the best scout snipers there ever was and rose quickly in esteem, until the one fateful mission where he came back and his spotter didn't. It was one of those black op missions so hidden that even for me much of it was classified or redacted. Something about that mission broke Sergeant Reynolds, and no matter what was tried, he never said anything about that mission. After that mission, the sergeant became a huge thorn in the Corps' side. He was belligerent and insulting to the officers, got into fights all the time, drank too much. Yes, this was possible for someone in the Corps. Became a loner, and no one wanted to work with him. He was well on his way to being kicked out of the Corps when the Lance Corporal latched onto him. Something indefinable clicked between those two, and suddenly two thorns in the Corps side became an elite team of two. The Corps tried to integrate them into regular scout sniper squads, and they would work together with the squads. But much like the Lance Corporal's boot camp experience, they never quite fit in. So Command farmed them out to the agencies as a two-man team where they didn't need to fit in. Shit. They'd still be doing that if the Lance Corporal hadn't dated the old man's underage daughter. I still wasn't sure how the hell that happened, or even what exactly happened. But the old man wasn't amused and gave them a permanent assignment to Mr. Smith and his agency. Mr. Smith didn't have the sense God gave a head of lettuce and had no idea how to handle these two Marines. Imagine sending them to the school, and then constantly complaining to the old man about their performance, which in light of this piece of shit school was exemplary. The old man was ready to do something drastic when I offered to be a liaison between Mr. Smith and the old man. He jumped on it, just so he wouldn't have to hear from Mr. Smith again, even though my reports to the old man were boring as hell. Now all I had to do was wrestle control of the Lance Corporal and Sergeant away from Mr. Smith, which wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. Mr. Smith felt he needed to break them, and if a Marine DI couldn't do that, there was no way Mr. Smith and his cohorts could. I smiled at the sergeant. He was the key. If I could gain his trust, then the Lance Corporal would follow, and tonight's deal with him was the first time he'd shown any trust in me, and even displayed a bit of the old Sergeant Reynolds spirit. He asked. Flashback, Sergeant Reynolds, chopper flight. I watched Major M during the flight. He was deep in thought. I had more respect for him than most officers, not that I would ever admit that to him. First, he didn't waltz into being an officer. He came up through the ranks, and that's not easy. Second, he didn't treat me like the other officers did, like damaged goods. Oh, he still gave me hell, but he didn't do that to piss me off. He did it because that's what all officers do. But something about him and what he did in the Corps, well, it wasn't quite right. First, I'd never even heard of the group he was in. I checked like hell and found out anyone who knew anything about it never talked about it. I finally determined he was part of a clandestine unit in the Corps that did things that no one else did or were supposed to do. If even half the rumors were true about this group, then one thing was sure. You didn't want to screw with them because bad things happened to the people who did. Plus, from the things I found out, the Major was right there in much of the action with the Corps. The Combined Action Program and other missions in Vietnam. A return to Nam during the evacuation of Saigon. Operation Urgent Fury in Grenada, and the Beirut barracks bombing both about the same time. Now that was interesting because I'd heard rumors that while President Reagan waffled on attacking the Sheikh Abdullah barracks in Baalbek, Lebanon, the barracks were supposed to house the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, believed to have trained the Hezbollah militants who attacked our barracks. Some group went in there but didn't just kill them, they were brutally tortured and executed. At first it was thought to be Mossad, but now I wasn't so sure that it wasn't the Major's group. And of course his group was all over the normal hot spots. However, when an officer gets too quiet, it was never a good thing. The longer it went on, the worse it was, and I'd had enough of this. The Major looked at me and smiled, so I asked, Sir, you seem to be deep in thought. Is there something I can help you with? He surprised the hell out of me when he answered, Sergeant, as an officer in the Corps, I want to apologize to you for the lack of support and the mistreatment you have received over the mission where you lost your spotter. I'm not going to ask you what terrible thing happened on the mission, but I do know the Corps failed to support you correctly when you came back from the mission. They also haven't made an effort to understand you since then. I will try my best to rectify the mistakes which the Corps has made. What the hell was this? Was it some sort of elaborate trick? I replied with what I thought was a good test for him, Sir. I'm not sure what you're talking about. He looked at me, pulled off his headset, and motioned for me to do that same. Then he said, Look, Sergeant, no one can hear us, so let's cut the crap. I don't know what happened on that mission, but I do know you feel like the Corps bent you over and gave it to you after that mission. You resent everything about that mission and how you've been treated ever since then, and I don't blame you. In fact, I resent the hell out of how both you and the Lance Corporal have been treated, and I plan to do everything I can to rectify this situation. I replied, Sir, while I appreciate the apology, I find it hard to believe all you're telling me. The Major laughed. Sergeant, you must be from Missouri because you want me to show you everything. I know you like to make deals, so what would I need to do or show you so that you could trust me? I wasn't sure I liked this, but I needed a moment to think, so I asked, Sir, permission to speak freely. He replied, Jack, call me Mike and tell me what the hell I can do for you and Ben. I thought and answered, Mike, first, I know we screwed up when we didn't tell you about the tracking devices. He interrupted, Jack, that's forgotten. Now what else? I looked him in the eyes and asked, Mike, just what are your plans for us? Mike smiled and answered, Jack, you and Ben are loners and don't really fit in with normal Marines. So what I want is to develop a new area within the Marines designed for loners like you and Ben. You two will be doing missions similar to what you've done in the past with a few changes here and there. I decided to press him. What happens if you give us a mission we don't like or don't want to do? He smiled and promised, Jack, I won't blow smoke up your butt. There will be some hard missions that you won't like, but there will be a good reason for doing them, and you will know those reasons. I thought for a moment and said, what about us working for the scumsucker Mr. Smith and this damn spook school? He shook his head and answered, Jack, I'm working on that problem right now, and it's harder than I thought it would be. But know this, Mr. Smith was giving the general hell about the way you and Ben acted at the school, and the general was ready to ship you and Ben off to some shithole assignment and forget about you two until I stepped in as liaison between the two of you. Hearing that made me feel better because the old man had a habit of doing exactly that, and I believed that was going to happen to us. I decided to see if I could really push his buttons and asked, so what if we decide to not work with you? He said, Jack, that's your decision and I won't stand in your way. You will continue to work for Mr. Smith, and I will still be the liaison between him and the general. I got bold and questioned. Okay, what are your expectations from Ben and me? Flashback, Major M, chopper flight. I made real headway with the sergeant and he asked, okay, what are your expectations from Ben and me? I simply replied, Jack, all I want from you and Ben is to know that you are part of my team. As I'm sure you found out at Gunny's last night when you were asking about me, I take care of my team members. I will make sure you don't catch any flack from any other brass, even if you screw up. Jack answered, you know what I discovered last night at Gunny's? I replied, Jack, I know and hear more things than you'd believe. So are you and Ben on my team? He shook my hand and said, Major M, yes, but on a provisional basis. I want to see how things go with this mission. We landed at the building as I replied, Sergeant Reynolds, that's fair enough. I know I can work with and trust you and the Lance Corporal, but you two need to decide that you can work with and trust me. Now it's time you see some of what I can do. We got out of the chopper. When the sergeant saw where we landed, he asked, so we're going in there? I could tell Sergeant Reynolds was impressed as I answered, hell yes we are. This is one of the main places I work from. Flashback, Ben, mission. The XO knocked on the door and announced, 30 minutes to station. Be ready in 10 minutes for a briefing. I yelled back, you guys have any coffee on this tin can? He replied, we'll have some at the briefing. We grabbed our packs and prepared them for a water assault. I pulled out my rifles, slipped condoms over the muzzles on both of them, and used a twist tie to secure them to the barrels behind the cans. Then put them both into separate dry bags and double-checked that everything inside my pack was in waterproof bags, and finally put my whole pack into another dry bag. I looked over and saw that Tom and Howard just finished the same procedures. It was damn nice working with guys that knew what the hell they were doing. I began to think and I said, you know, I don't think the XO has any idea who we are or who we work for. Tom chimed, yeah, I bet you're right since we came in on a Navy chopper. As far as they know, we could be spooks or SEALs. Howard added, and it's to our advantage they don't know who we are, what our ranks are, and that we're Marines. I nodded, yeah, I agree. Let's keep our face masks on as much as possible. Just as we pulled our masks back over our faces, the XO came back, knocked on the door and said, follow me to the briefing room. I was surprised when we walked into a very busy and mostly full briefing room. Howard whispered, it looks like all the teams they are sending in are here on this tin can. Tom added, yeah, they are. It would have been nice to know about this ahead of time. We were the only team wearing face masks. I assessed the room, also noticed we were the only team that brought our gear and answered Tom. I'm sure the major knew about this and would have briefed me if he was here. I already recognized two of the teams here, and they're damn good. I was going to say more when the briefing started. The captain looked at my team and ordered, the team with the skull masks needs to remove those for the briefing. I changed my voice as I lied and replied, sorry, but neither you nor anyone in this room has the security clearance to see my team's faces. Yeah, it was a huge lie, but the odds of the captain calling my bluff were very slim, and the benefits of my team being unknown might be a huge tactical advantage. He stared at me, then backed down and began the briefing. I already didn't like things since all the teams deploying from one ship meant this tin can was a single point of failure. If something happened to the tin can, we were SOL. The teams were all deploying by Zodiacs to different locations on the island. I was not impressed. This mission had all the makings of a cluster shit waiting to happen. The captain finished the briefing and announced, okay, all the teams will meet aft in 30 minutes to deploy simultaneously. While the other teams began to bullshit and posture each other, I quickly grabbed Tom and Howard. As we headed out the door, I whispered, this Oplan is seriously foobarred, so here's what we're doing. Flashback, Major M, Command OP. It took forever to get Sergeant Reynolds through security and then settled in for the mission. My team was mildly amused that I had a sergeant sitting beside me and working with me today. It was a first for me, and I was sure they would have some questions about it later. Sergeant Reynolds took a look at the main screen and asked, "That's a high-resolution satellite feed of a destroyer stationed off Bimini. Is that where we were headed?" I replied, "Affirmative. The Lance Corporal and his team plus all the other teams are going to deploy from the destroyer." As we watched a small boat moved away from the destroyer, one of my team announced, "Sir, that's an unscheduled departure of one of the Zodiacs. They weren't supposed to leave for another 20 minutes. The comm immediately crackled. The captain of the destroyer was pissed as hell because one of the teams commandeered a Zodiac and left ahead of schedule. He didn't know which team it was because they were wearing skull masks. All the other teams were raising hell because they wanted to leave early too. I looked at the sergeant as he smiled at me and said, "Yes, sir. I'm sure that's Ben and his team." Then we received a call on our private scrambled comm channel. "Graveyard, this is Skull Candy, acknowledge." I chuckled at the Lance Corporal's choice of call signs. We hadn't set them up ahead of time, so he made them up on the fly. But I wasn't concerned because this was an encrypted comm link and any conversation was safe. I responded, "Skull Candy, this is Graveyard, acknowledging your message. Please justify your actions in commandeering the Zodiac and starting the mission ahead of schedule." The Lance Corporal replied, "Graveyard, the op-plan as stated had several serious flaws which endangered the completion of the mission. First, we were all being deployed simultaneously from the same platform. Not only is this a single point of failure, it's also bound to attract too much unwanted attention. Second, all the teams were going to be in each other's way, and there was bound to be some collisions and other problems during the initial deployment. So I took the initiative, developed our own op-plan, and left early." I replied, "Skull Candy, it would have been nice to know about this ahead of time, but I'm sure you didn't have that luxury. I approve your mission deviations from the op-plan. Now proceed to the following coordinates and advise me when you have reached the beach. Also stand by for a fragmentary order change, a change to the initial op-plan which happens frequently. When one of my team gave them the coordinates, we watched as the Zodiac changed course." I smiled and looked at Sergeant Reynolds when he said, "Flashback, Jack, Command OP. Shit. I hope Ben didn't screw up. I needed to do some damage control, so I commented, sir. I don't know the entire op-plan, but from the little I heard from Ben, it was seriously foobarred, and I think he did the right thing." The Major continued to smile and replied, "Sergeant Reynolds, relax. The Lance Corporal, without knowing it, did exactly what we were going to do if I was running the mission. However, I might have used a little more tact and subterfuge than he did. Now watch and observe how we work, because I need to do a couple things." The Major ordered his team, "Please notify the Royal Bahamas Police that they can now intercept the destroyer." We saw a ship leave Bimini and head toward the destroyer. One of the team announced, "Sir, the captain of the destroyer has seen the police launch headed in the direction of his ship and is questioning what he should do." The Major called, "Skull Candy, this is Graveyard, acknowledge and prepare for Frago." Ben replied, "Skull Candy, ready for Frago." The Major continued, "First, I compliment you on your insight to leave early. The Royal Bahamas Police is on its way to confront the destroyer, and the destroyer will leave before any other teams are deployed. You are now the only team on this mission. When you arrive on the beach, you will rendezvous with our resource on the island. His location will be transferred to your computer. Finally, when you complete the mission, you are to exfil in the Zodiac, and we will have a Martin P-5M seaplane land and extract your team and the package. Good hunting." One of the team members announced, "Sir, the destroyer is bugging out." I looked at the Major and asked, "Did you know Ben was going to commandeer the Zodiac early?" He smiled and said, "I was about 90% sure he would, because it was the right thing to do." One of the team said, "Sir, everyone's trying to figure out which team left the destroyer." The Major ordered, "I need to take care of this. While I'm gone, the sergeant is in command." I was shocked as the Major left the room, leaving me in command. I don't even know this mission. No sooner did the Major leave the room than the shit hit the fan. One of the team announced, "Sergeant, it appears the Royal Bahamas police vessel has changed course and is heading after the Zodiac." "Shit. What to do now?" I questioned. "Will the Zodiac beat the police boat to the island?" The team member replied, "Yes, sir, they will easily outrun the police ship to the island." I thought for a moment and asked, "A Zodiac is a pretty small target on the ocean. Do we have any idea how they are tracking the Zodiac?" The team member answered, "I am not sure, Sergeant. May I speculate?" I replied, "Hell yes, speculate away." He answered, "Sergeant, they can't be tracking the Zodiac from radar because its radar signature is too small. I would guess they have someone on the shore with binoculars that sees the Zodiac and is directing the police ship." I thought for a moment and asked, "Is there a secondary landing location?" They responded, "Yes, Sergeant, there is, however, it will delay the mission." I asked another question. "If the Zodiac is destroyed after the team lands, is there a way to supply the team with a new Zodiac?" One of the team answered, "There is a chance the seaplane could drop one to them." I made my decision and called, Skull Candy, this is Graveyard, acknowledge and stand by for a Frago. Flashback, bin, mission. Jack surprised me when came on the radio and I replied, Graveyard, it's good to hear you. Skull Candy acknowledges and is ready for Frago. Jack said, Skull Candy, the police boat has changed course and is pursuing your Zodiac. Reach the beach as soon as possible. Hide the Zodiac and move your ORP further inland. If the Zodiac is destroyed, we will try our best to airdrop one into you for exfil. I replied, message understood, Graveyard. Tom was driving the Zodiac, so I turned, looked at him and yelled, kick this thing in the butt. We have a police boat after us. He said, grab onto something because this is going to get rough. Then the Zodiac took off like it was a bumper car being driven by a drunken sailor. I yelled at Howard, give me a hand with this. We grabbed some supplies out of the ORP drag bag and set them up. Howard laughed and said, don't tell me. I laughed right back and answered, okay, I won't. Flashback, Major M, Command OP. The bureaucrats were in a tight spot. They were furious that only one team, my team, had made it off the destroyer. Before they could make a rash decision, which is typical for them, I called to reassure them that I had everything under control and that we'd soon rescue the senator's daughter. Then I watched as Sergeant Reynolds handled the issue with the Royal Bahamas police boat. It was a good thing I let him take care of it, because the damn scumsuckers double-crossed me when they went after the Zodiac, and I probably would have ordered the destroyer back to blow the scumsuckers out of the water. Even though he didn't know the Oplan, he asked the right questions and made the right decisions. I walked back into the command room, took my seat beside him and laid on the praise, Sergeant Reynolds, you did a hell of a job while I was gone. I couldn't have done better. He answered, thank you, sir. I could have done better if I had known the whole Oplan. I replied, Sergeant, from now on you and Lance Corporal Blaine will not only know the whole Oplan, you will help me develop it. One of my team announced, sir, the Zodiac has reached the beach. We watched and expected to see the Zodiac hauled up on the beach, but we were surprised when it left the beach and headed back out into the ocean. I asked, does anyone know what's going on? Not one of my team answered. Then Sergeant Reynolds remarked, I would say that Ben has improvised. I ordered, show me the location of the tracking device in Skull Candy's clothes and radio. The map changed and showed the radio tracker was on the beach and the clothes tracker was in the Zodiac with the damn police boat closing on the Zodiac. Next thing we knew, there was a flash. The Zodiac and tracking device disappeared and the Royal Bahamas police ship slowed. One of my team announced, sir, the Royal Bahamas police craft is broadcasting a distress call. They have been disabled and are sinking. I looked at Sergeant Reynolds and asked, Sergeant Reynolds, your analysis on what just happened. Flashback, bin, mission. The minute we hit the beach, I threw all the clothes the Major gave me into the Zodiac. Then we turned it around, opened the throttle, and sent it back out into the ocean and watched. The police boat didn't even slow up but started firing on the Zodiac as soon as they were in range. I let Howard detonate the claymores we attached to the front of the Zodiac. He jumped up and down and said, damn, that screwed up those scumsuckers. I just finished getting into the clean gear my guys brought me. Tom checked everything and said, don't you think you'd better contact the Major? I laughed and said, yeah, he's probably pissing in his REMF panties. I called, Graveyard, this is Skull Candy, acknowledge. The Major was back and replied, Skull Candy, this is Graveyard. You had us worried for a few minutes. That was an interesting tactical move. I answered, Graveyard. I kept the radio so I know you knew we were still on the beach. And disabling the police ship was necessary collateral damage to keep them from pursuing us and endangering the mission. We placed the mines in such a way that we hoped we didn't kill anyone. We are also notifying you we have reached the beach and will deploy further inland and set up the ORP. Your TAC radio with the tracking device inside will be left with my team member at the ORP, and he will forward any fragos to the rest of the team. The Major complained, Skull Candy, the change of the radio is not acceptable. I tapped on the mic, scratched on it with my fingernail and answered, sorry, Graveyard, you're breaking up. It must be solar flares. I will try to establish contact again at the location of our ORP. Flashback, Jack, Command OP. It was all I could do to keep from laughing my butt off. Ben pulled the bad radio reception trick and the Major was majorly pissed. He asked his team, are they really having radio interference? One of the team members announced, sir, we do seem to be having some issues with the reception of the radio which we don't understand. It seemed fine during his last broadcast, then the signal gain rapidly decreased, and now we can't even get a fix on their position. Damn, I was sure Ben pulled one of the tricks I'd taught him, and I had to bite my lip to keep from smiling. I asked, sir, permission to use the latrine and get a cup of coffee. He answered, Sergeant, permission granted. Just make sure to take the guard with you, because you're still not cleared to freely roam the hallways of this building. I headed to the latrine and finally I could openly laugh. Flashback, Ben, mission. We headed inland, and as luck would have it, the area was pretty deserted. About a half a click from the beach, we found an empty house. I ordered, "Cover me." Then I pulled the lockpick set out of my pack and went to work. A couple minutes later, the door was open, and we proceeded to check the house. Once we were sure it was empty, I said, "Okay, Tom, here's the lead-lined film bag with the TAC radio in it. Unfortunately, you're going to catch the brunt of the Major's wrath when you take the radio out of the bag." He interrupted me and complained, "Thanks a hell of a lot." I laughed and said, "Just remember, he doesn't really know who the hell you are, so if he starts acting too much like a pissy little girl, just give him some shit and throw the radio back in the bag. Once we get the Marine's position, it's not like we need anything from him until exfil." Howard asked, "By the way, have you figured out just how we're going to exfil?" I laughed and said, "Hell yes I did, and you two are going to love it." Unlike the Major, I told the guys, and they did just about bust their guts from laughter. Tom had the computer up and said, "Just as we thought, those scumsuckers tried to snag our location from the computer. But I took care of that before I connected to the satellite uplink. Here's the location of the Marine who's watching the girl, and this is the building they're holding her in." I asked, "Okay, Tom, give us a route to the Marine in the building." "Howard, let's get out of this gear and into something that fits more with our spring break paradise." We changed out of our tactical gear and into very loose-fitting summer shirts, shorts, and beach shoes. Now we looked like a couple of tourists. I looked at my rifles and decided on this urban mission my M40 would be a hindrance, so I left it and unpacked my Whisper. We left our long-term gear and tossed all our essential gear and rifles into a couple duffel bags, grabbed them and headed towards our AO, area of operation, to meet up with the other Marine and see what intel he had for us. Flashback, Major M, Command OP. One of my team announced, "Sir, we have excellent radio signal again." And we heard a different voice say, "Graveyard, this is Skull Candy ORP, acknowledge." I replied, "I don't know who you are. I need to speak with the team leader." He answered, "Sorry, Graveyard, but Skull Candy leader is currently on mission and unavailable. However, if you're nice to me, I will relay any messages to him." What the hell? Be nice to him. I'll nicely kick his butt. I muted the mic and asked my team, "Any luck on getting his location from his computer?" I almost detected laughter in my team member's voice when he said, "No, sir. His computer reports his position as 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest Washington, D.C. I blinked my eyes and said, "You're telling me his computer says they are in the White House? How in the hell are they doing that?" My team member answered, "Sir, we are still trying to figure this out. But given enough time, we're sure we can find the actual location." I called, "Skull Candy ORP, please give us your current latitude and longitude." He replied, "Graveyard, it's 38 degrees 53 minutes, 53.3 north latitude, and 77 degrees 2 minutes 9.9 west longitude." The coordinates didn't sound right, but then my team member announced, "Sir, that's the latitude and longitude of the White House." I started swearing, "Skull Candy ORP, what the hell?" He interrupted and said, "Graveyard, your signal's breaking up again. It must be sunspot activity." And the next thing we knew, the radio went dead. I asked, "Tell me we got a fix on him from the TAC radio?" My team announced, "No, sir, something is blocking the GPS signal from the TAC radio." I looked at Sergeant Reynolds and could tell he was fighting back laughter. So I asked, "Flashback, Jack, Command OP. Shit." I let the cat out of the bag and couldn't control my laughter. Major M figured it out and asked, "Sergeant Reynolds, you'd better not lie to me. Do you have any information on what's happening?" I already knew better than to lie, so I told the truth. "Yes, sir, I do. Permission to speak freely." He nodded his head and said, "Speak SGT." I answered, "Sir, Ben could do this mission in his sleep and doesn't need you holding his hand or talking into his ear distracting him. That and the tracking device you have in your TAC radio is why he left it at the ORP. He will call the ORP if he has any questions or needs any help." The Major continued, "Do you know how they are blocking the radio signal and who the rude person is at the ORP?" I replied, "Sir, I do not know who is manning the ORP, but would suggest if you want any information from him, you'd better not yell at him. They are dropping the TAC radio into a lead-lined pouch used to protect camera film from the X-ray scanners at the airports." I had the attention of the team, and one of them asked, "Do you know how they have the computer reporting a false location?" Another asked, "And how are they blocking the GPS signal from the TAC radio?" I had a good idea how they spoofed the GPS location. Someone, not Ben because he wasn't that good, substituted their own computer for the computer the Major provided for the mission. They had to grab the information they needed off the Major's computer while they were on the tin can. This computer must have its fake GPS location hard-coded into the software. However, I had no idea how he blocked the TAC radio's GPS signals. Yeah, I could have told the Major, but until this mission was over and I made sure that Ben, or I didn't end up getting bent over again. The major's still provisional. So I lied and answered, "Sorry guys, I'm just an old fart and don't know anything about computers or blocking GPS signals." Major M asked, "Well, since you're the only one here who seems to know anything at all about what's going on, what do you suggest we do?" I replied, "Well, if I was running this mission, I would give everyone a break and leave rotating people manning the radio. Because Ben kept your TAC radio, he will call his ORP when he needs anything or has anything to report. But knowing him, we probably won't hear from him until he's ready to exfil." The major added, "That was my next question. With the Zodiac gone, how the hell is he going to exfil?" I smiled and explained, "You can bet he's already figured something out. Now, sir, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a nap because I didn't get much sleep last night. Have your team wake me when Ben reports." I crawled off to the back of the command center, found a nice-looking piece of carpet and sacked out. Flashback, Mira. After conversation with Ira. Ira provided me with interesting information. It appeared there was tremendous turmoil taking place on a little island called Bimini, located a small number of kilometers away from the state of Florida. A naval vessel was chased away by a police boat, but then the police vessel decided to pursue a smaller vessel. When they attempted to capture the smaller vessel, it explosively detonated and devastatingly destroyed the smaller vessel while seriously damaging the police vessel. Concerns consumed me that my lance corporal was on that smaller destroyed vessel. These concerns were not ameliorated to any degree by my continued cranky cranium. I exhausted my limited resources at the Intelligence Educational Institution, then attempted again to contact my sister Ira without success. That was atypical behavior for her, and I postulated that she was providing educational training in response to my failure to answer her multiple phone calls the previous night. Flashback, Ben, mission. So far my oplan worked perfectly because we fit right into the spring break scene on Bimini. Hell, we were even being hit on by drunk and horny college girls. Most of them wondered what we had in our bags. We lied and told them it was video equipment and asked them to meet us at the docks in the early afternoon. We had them promise to bring all their friends because we were going to hold a contest to find the most beautiful co-ed on Bimini. That bit of news sent them scurrying to put on their makeup and find their smallest bikinis. We finally reached the building where the other Marine was located. I called Tom on our TAC radios and asked, "ORP, do you have any more news on our mystery man?" He answered, "1 minute. I will contact the graveyard." Howard grinned and said, "I wonder how pissed off he made the major." I didn't get a chance to reply because Tom came back and answered, "Graveyard called him and verified he's still in the same position. I would approach with caution because he could be a major hostile." I answered, "Message received and understood ORP, and will follow the suggestion." I looked at Howard and ordered, "Okay, let's see if this guy's going to be a major problem." Normally, we would have changed into our tactical gear, and that would have worked well during a night mission. However, for a daylight mission like this, the tactical gear would have attracted more attention than shit attracted flies. Attention that we didn't need. However, we did need to change some things. We entered an empty room that reeked of booze and sex, pulled on our t-shirts and tactical vests, and put our loose-fitting summer shirts over the top of everything. The shorts weren't going to work, so we changed into our tactical pants and added our elbow, knee pads, and boots. I ordered, "Lock and load. It's time to go hot. I'll take lead as we head to the roof, and you cover my 6. Howard asked, "What the challenge response?" I replied, "Yours is pain and mine is major. Now let's go check out this Marine. If he gives us any shit, we're going to put some major hurt on him." Howard chuckled, "I like that major pain." We worked our way to the roof, and I slowly and silently slipped open the door and pied the roof with my periscope. I saw him sitting under an umbrella in a lawn chair with a drink in his hand. I moved back inside and whispered, "Howard, this guy's pretty smart. He's acting like a college kid resting on the roof. There's also a guard with weapons on the roof across from us where the girl is being held. I'm going to crawl across the roof and make contact with this guy." I slipped out onto the roof and began my crawl towards our contact. I got right behind him and whispered, "You look damn comfortable." To his credit, he only jumped slightly, picked up his drink and replied, "Damn, you guys are good. I knew you were coming and I still didn't hear you. I don't know what you did to piss off the major, but he told me I was supposed to tell you that payback's a bitch. But I wouldn't worry. He said it in such a way that I think he's going to try to pull a prank on you." I answered, "He doesn't like the fact that he can't tell us what the hell to do like a couple of trained monkeys. And if he thinks he can prank me, then he can come and get some. I'm B and my other team member is H. Since he hasn't told us jack squat about this mission, what sort of sitrap can you give me?" He answered, "I'm G, and other than when I went behind the stairwell to piss, I've been here the whole time. They have one guard on the roof and change shifts every 2 hours. So far, I've counted 4 different guards on the roof. I've kept an eye on the windows and the only movement I've seen is on the third floor. So I think that's where she's being held. There was an original group of 6 that took her and I've counted another 5 which have come in a vehicle for a confirmed, but not solid total of 11. I said, gee, that's not bad. Now stay still because I'm going to rise up behind you and glass the building over your right shoulder. I used my binocs to check out the sentry on the roof and asked, this guy looks to be carrying a battle rifle and a pistol. Are they all armed this well? G replied, yeah, they all seem to carry the same weapons. Did you guys bring a rifle for me? I continued to watch the sentry patrol and said, no, we didn't have room for an extra rifle. I called on my TAC radio and informed Howard and Tom of the situation and asked, ORP, is there any way you can cut the power to the building? I'd love to kill the air conditioning and heat things up in that building, so they'd have to open the windows. Tom replied, not without a direct connection to the power grid. I watched the sentry's route, came up with an idea and said, ORP, that's okay, I think I figured out my own way to take out the power. I told G, now I'm going to slip my rifle up over your right shoulder. You need to sit perfectly still. G complained, won't it blow my ears out? I answered, hell no, it's subsonic suppressed. I slipped my rifle up over G's shoulder, used the mil dots on my scope to range the sentry on the roof and waited. You see, he walked the exact same circular route and performed the exact same procedures on every circle. He made a point to lean over the edge of the roof and observe the ground around the building, and I was going to use that fact to kill their power. I waited and warned G, okay, don't even breathe. When the sentry leaned over, I touched off a shot, hit him square in the head, and watched as he tumbled off the roof and onto the main power lines for the area. He shorted the hell out of the lines, and even up here you could hear him sizzle like bacon in a skillet. Sparks erupted and all the buildings went dark. G remarked, damn, that was a hell of a shot. I barked, don't talk. There's someone else coming out on the roof to see what's happening. I watched as the new sentry ran to the edge of the roof, looked over the edge, saw the other guy hanging from the power lines. When he realized that the other guard was still burning, he then puked his guts out. I toyed with taking him out but decided it would be better if he was allowed to head back into the building and tell the others what happened. I called on my radio, head downstairs, prepare to cross the street and infill the building. I pulled an extra TAC radio out of my pack, handed it to G and said, you need to keep an eye on that building and let me know on which floors and locations they open the windows. And if anything changes, or if another sentry comes out on the roof, call us immediately. Do you have any questions? G asked, am I going to exfil with your team? I answered, no, there's no reason for you to leave unless it becomes an all-out war. Then we will call you on the radio and tell you where to meet us. Otherwise, when this is over, just slip off the roof, head back to your hotel, and forget we were ever here. I headed downstairs to regroup with Howard and was surprised there was no one around. I called, H, where are you, and where the hell is everyone else? He replied, B, I'm standing by the alley door waiting for you, and everyone else is out looking at the guy hanging in the power lines. I ran down the stairs, joined Howard, watched the crowd and said, well, I guess my little plan worked better than expected. I didn't think about it attracting the attention of everyone that was here. We watched as the kids took pictures with their mobile phones which would soon end up on the internet, and Howard remarked, now that's just screwed up. Wait, look at that. 3 of the opfers came out of the target building, unarmed, and started yelling at the kids. I said, now's our chance. We opened the door, sprinted across the alley, and into the doorway of the target building. Our TAC radios crackled. B, this is G, there are 2 sentries on the roof. However, they aren't patrolling. They are busy watching the kids in the street. I was concerned and asked, are they targeting any of the kids? G replied, negative. They are just looking and pointing at the guy you shot. I think they are trying to figure out how to get him down. I questioned, have they opened any of the windows yet? G answered, negative. I didn't like the fact that we still weren't sure where the senator's daughter was, but we had already confused and separated the opfers, eliminated one of them, and had reached the doorway of the building. Howard pied the room with his periscope and said, their weapons are unguarded on a table in the middle of the room. I ordered, Howard, these 3 are yours. Take my rifle, infill the room, and prepare for a hasty ambush. I gave him about a minute to get into location, then I walked into the crowd where the 3 opfers were still yelling at the kids and the kids were taunting them. I looked up at the guy in the power lines and yelled, OMG, that's so gross. I think I'm going to puke. Where's a bathroom? And then I sprinted towards the doorway of their building. My act had the desired effect and the scumsuckers yelled, hey, stupid kid, you can't go into that building. I called on my TAC radio, Major H. I'm headed through the doorway now with the 3 opfers on my butt. Don't blue on blue me. Howard answered, pain. I ran through the doorway and kept moving towards the exit in the back of the room. The 3 opfers stormed in behind me, I heard Howard's suppressed rifle spit its deadly rounds 3 times, and the opfers were down. I came back into the room and reacquired my rifle from the table in the middle of the room. Howard had already started moving the opfers to the corner of the room. I took the time to field strip the bolts from their weapons and tossed them in the corner of the room with the bodies. Then I moved to the doorway, locked the door, and rigged a flashbang to trigger if the door was opened. Many would feel the hard part of the mission was already over since we'd already successfully infiltrated the building. But we both knew that was the easy part. Now we had to clear the floors, find the girl, and get her along with ourselves safely out of the building. If the count that G gave us was anywhere close to being right, we were down to about 7 or so opfers left. I called, "G, are the 2 sentries still on the roof?" He replied, "Affirmative. I will notify you if that changes." It was getting muggy in the building, so I asked, "Have they opened any windows yet?" G answered, "Negative." Oh well, so much for that part of my op plan. Howard and I began moving through the first floor of the building using bounding overwatch, pied each room with our periscopes, and got a feeling for the layout of the building. With the power being out, the elevators didn't work, a bonus for the good guys. Just to make sure we wouldn't have any issues if the power came back on, I shot a couple holes in each elevator door adjacent to the frame, then jammed a spent case partway into each hole. We found the other entrance to the building. Howard locked the door and set up a flashbang to warn us if someone entered the building and moved to the stairwell. Stairwells can be real scumsuckers to clear, and this one was one of the worst I'd seen. It had a huge opening in the middle that went all the way to the roof, so if you moved incorrectly, anyone on the stairway above would see you. I pied the hell out of it with my periscope, hugged the sidewall, and worked my way slowly up the stairs, stopping every couple steps to SLLS. Now was not the time to get sloppy. I watched as Howard set another flashbang tripwire at the bottom of the first flight of stairs as an added precaution. I was at the intermediate landing and had eyes on the doorway for the second floor. I motioned for Howard to follow me, waited until he reached my location, then hugged the wall, and started to slip up to the second floor when I noticed a tripwire. I visually followed the tripwire and saw it was connected to a fragmentation grenade. Now I understood why these opfers didn't post sentries on the stairs. It also told me the opfers for the most part were staying put. Otherwise, they would have disabled the grenade. I double-checked to make sure the trap wasn't an even better trap, reached down, grabbed the grenade, and clipped the tripwire. We then continued up to the second floor door. Opening a door, without knowing what's on the other side, is always dangerous. I touched the doorknob, started to open the door, then stopped and decided taking the time to clear the second floor right now was an unnecessary risk. I pulled out a flashbang and set a tripwire across the second floor door. Howard came up to me. We pied the stairwell and I moved to the next intermediate landing. I motioned Howard to me, then I motioned for him to hold POS and SLLS. I was going to head to the roof and take out the other 2 sentries before we infilled the third floor. I reached the roof access, pied the roof, and saw not 2 opfers, but 3 opfers on the roof. G screwed up and didn't tell us someone else came up on the roof. 3 shots later, the opfers were down. I called, "Team, change frequency." I changed to the next arranged frequency and waited until I heard, "This is H, change good." Then I heard, "This is ORP, change good." I replied, "G screwed up as there were 3 opfers on the roof, so he's now off the mission." Tom replied, "That's good, because until you killed the power to the whole island, I think he had been using his mobile phone to tell OP Command what we are doing." I said, "Shit, the scumsucker. I didn't even think of that. And are you telling me all the power's out on the island?" Tom replied, "It sure as hell is. That's the only reason you guys don't have police swarming all over the place." I asked, "So what's going on then?" Tom laughed, "Shit. The college kids are using this opportunity to their advantage and are raising hell in the streets. The police are too busy trying to keep the kids from screwing up everything, so they don't have time to mess with you guys." I made sure the roof was clear and took the time to set up a rappel line at one edge of the roof, just in case we needed it. There was no need to set a tripwire on the roof, so I headed back inside and approached the third floor door. Howard crept up the stairs so his head was level with the landing, and we were as ready as we'd ever be. I slowly turned the doorknob and opened the door just enough to pie the room with my periscope. Sure enough, there was a guard scanning the room. I pulled the periscope back in, signaled Howard, slowly opened the door, and shot the op for scumsucker. Howard joined me at the doorway. I slipped into the room, and then one of the flashbangs triggered below us. I ducked around the corner of a wall as 3 guys boiled out of a room, and Howard and I opened up on them. A second flashbang went off, and this one echoed in the stairwell. I looked at Howard and said, "The scumsuckers are coming up the stairs. You hold them off while I find the girl." Howard headed into the stairwell and must have started dropping grenades down the stairs because it sounded like World War III. I headed towards the room the 3 opfers came from. Chances were the girl would be in there if she was anywhere. I reached the doorway, pied the room with my periscope, and there she was, tied to a chair. And I couldn't believe what else I saw in the room. I called, "Guys, I have eyes on the girl, but the scumsucker opfers have her wired." "H, how are you doing?" I heard a couple more explosions in the stairwell, and he answered, "B, I could sure use your grenades." Tom added, "There's still chaos in the streets, and the police are busy as hell. But with all the noise you guys are making, I bet they're going to head in your direction soon." I ran back, gave Howard my grenades, and said, "This is going to take at least 10 minutes. Do you think you can hold them off that long?" He answered, "Do I really have a choice?" I yelled, "Semper Fi," and headed back into the room with the girl. I walked around in front of her, waved, and said, "We're here to rescue you." She motioned with her eyes towards the bombs, and I answered, "Yeah, I can see them, and if they had a way to set them, they also had a way to remove them." I reached over, pulled the gag out of her mouth, and she said, "Thank God you guys are here. They told me if I moved at all, the bomb would go off." I answered, "Miss, you really need to keep quiet so I can concentrate on disarming this bomb." I studied it, then asked, "What did they do when you needed to go to the toilet?" She replied, "I'm not sure. They always blindfolded me first. Then they lead me to the toilet, watched me, and made rude comments." I continued and questioned, "How long did it take for them to get you out of the chair?" She answered, "Oh, not long, just about a minute or so." I reached up, pinched off a piece of the explosive, rolled it in my fingers, and laughed. She looked at me and questioned, "What's so funny?" I answered, "Well, it didn't make sense for them to cover you with explosives and yet remain in the same room with you. If this much explosive went off, it would have killed not only you, it would have also killed them. This whole bomb was just a fake to scare you." She looked at me in disbelief and asked, "Are you sure?" I answered, "Hell yes, this is just modeling clay. Now let's get this fake bomb off you and get the hell out of here." She was still scared as hell as I removed the fake bomb. We ran to the stairwell, and Howard remarked, "That was a fast 10 minutes. I answered, "The bomb was fake. Now let's head to the roof and get out of here. Give us 3 minutes, then follow." We ran to the roof, where I told the girl, "We're going to rappel off the side of the building to the ground. You need to hop on my back and hold on like hell to my neck." I checked the ground, and all I saw were college kids watching the building from a distance. I threw the rope over the side of the building, took a short piece of webbing out of my essentials pack, and tied it around the girl using a bowline knot. Then I connected my rappel device to the maul straps on the front of my tactical vest, threaded the rope through the rappel device, looped the webbing attached to the girl around my body, and ordered, "Hold on tight." She grabbed the hell out of me with her arms and even wrapped her legs around my waist. We went over the side of the building, and less than 30 seconds later were on the ground. I ordered, "Stay down on the ground behind me," and pulled up my rifle, covered the area, and waited for Howard. I scanned the crowd and watched as the college kids filmed us with those damn ubiquitous camera phones they had and wanted to shoot each and every one of them. Howard hit the ground beside us, and I said, "Let's get the hell out of here. Miss, you stay right behind us and hit the ground if anyone fires a weapon." I called, "ORP, acknowledge primary mission partially completed. We have the girl, and she is in good health. Secondary mission totally completed. All opfers eliminated. Notify Graveyard and meet us at the exfil rendezvous." Tom replied, "ORP acknowledges message, will relay, and see you soon." Flashback, Major M, Command OP. We did take the Sergeant's advice and took a short break, until Skull Candy reached Jeff the Marine on the roof. Then he provided real-time intel to us from his mobile phone. The report sounded good until the whole island lost power and the mobile phones went dead. After that, we watched as the island appeared to descend into anarchy. We could see people running in the streets and small fires broke out everywhere. I remarked, "I don't know what the hell happened, but it looks like the whole island is a huge mess." Sergeant Reynolds laughed. "I would say Ben has done his usual thorough job." I questioned, "Explain yourself?" Sergeant Reynolds elaborated, "Knowing Ben like I do, he probably did something to take out the power in the AO building to give them a tactical advantage. Whatever he did too well, and it knocked out the power for the whole island. But this will be a blessing in disguise because the police are going to be so busy taking care of the looting and rioting that they won't have time to go after Ben's team." I answered, "That's a good analysis, Sergeant. Do you feel he has an exfil plan?" The sergeant replied, "Oh hell yes, I'm sure he does. He knows to never go into any mission without having a firm exit strategy." We continued waiting and finally received attack radio transmission, "Graveyard. This is Skull Candy, ORP acknowledge and prepare for a mission sitrep." I replied, "Graveyard acknowledges and awaits sitrep." ORP announced, "Graveyard, primary objective is in process. The girl has been recovered, is in good health, and she and Skull Candy team are in transit to exfil. Secondary mission is completed. All opfers were eliminated. ORP is dismantled, so expect next communication when ready for extraction. Then the radio went dead again. I didn't think we would, but I still asked, do we have an accurate location on any of the team? My team member replied, no sir. The computer is shut down and the GPS from the handset is still being jammed. Sergeant Reynolds remarked, if I was running this mission, I would tell the boys in the seaplane to keep their engines warm and let everyone else take a break because other than the extraction, this mission is as good as over. I looked at my team and said, you all heard the sergeant, call the seaplane, work out a comm rotation, and the rest of you take a break. Sergeant Reynolds headed to the back to take a nap, and I decided it was a good time to grab a cup of coffee and talk to the bureaucrats. Flashback, Mira. Late afternoon, day 8. I was terrifically troubled. My sister Ira would still not answer her phone. I think she was being a petulant child to make me maximally miffed. The school impeded my resources, and I could not receive adequate information on Bimini. However, there were tragic news reports about the island losing all electrical power and descending into a state of anarchy. If the malodorous major ordered my boyfriend there, and if he becomes damaged, I will acquire retribution for all my hostilities on him utilizing very slow and extremely agonizing methods. As I cogitated further about which methods I would employ, there was a knock on my door. Without thinking, I threw open the door, and what in Hades? Flashback, Major M, Command OP. I just finished my call, headed back into OP Command, and studied the satellite feed. I asked the tech on duty, what's that ship leaving the port? He answered, sir, it appears to be the 2nd Royal Bahamas police boat. The sergeant wandered up from his nap and asked, is something going on? I mentioned, the 2nd Royal Bahamas police boat just left the port. He laughed and said, I'll bet you $100 that Ben's commandeered the police boat. I shook his hand and said, I'll take that bet. And no sooner had I finished than we got a TAC radio transmission from the Lance Corporal, Graveyard, this is Skull Candy. I heard you guys might have a seaplane waiting for passengers. The TAC radio's GPS came back online and showed the position to be the police launch. I ordered the tech, get everyone back in here right now, call the seaplane, and tell them to rendezvous with the Royal Bahamas police boat. I replied, Skull Candy, it's good to hear from you. Congratulations on the mission. I can't wait to shake you and your team's hands. The Lance Corporal laughed, good try, sir. But you know my team won't be landing with me? Flashback, Ben, end of mission, day 8 Spook School. Yeah, we commandeered the 2nd and last Royal Bahamas police boat. After all, it was just sitting on the docks unguarded, and taking it seemed like the right thing to do. Besides, it's not like we sunk this one like the first one, even though Howard wanted to drop a couple frags on it when we left. The mission and the excitement were over. Now nothing was left but the boring travel back to Washington. I did get Major M to call and authorize dropping the guys off early. It was a good thing he cooperated, or I would have insisted with the help of Mr. 45. We spent the rest of the time shooting the breeze. I'd really enjoyed working with Tom and Howard and would miss the hell out of them. We laughed about all the good times we'd had at the school, and they gave me some good advice. The pilot announced, we're going to be landing in 10 minutes. Tom said, I suppose we need to give the gear back. I answered, look, you guys keep it because you've earned it. Howard remarked, hey, thanks, this is a great rifle, and I was looking forward to using it some more. The plane touched down, taxied to a stop. Tom and Howard jumped up. We bumped fists and yelled, Semper Fi until we die, hang them high, and 8th and I. They left the plane, and as I sat back down, I really missed Tom and Howard. No, wait, that's not exactly right. I realized I really missed Mira. I checked my watch and realized it would be too late for dinner, so once again I'd miss her costume. But yes, I couldn't wait to see her. It seemed like it took forever to get to the airport and then drop the girl off. Her dad, the senator, was there, shook my hand and congratulated me. The two of them left together. Then Major M said, Lance Corporal, we need to debrief you. I gave Jack an exasperated look, and Jack said, sir, Ben's tired, and if this could wait until tomorrow, I think he'd appreciate it. The major looked at me and answered, sure, what the hell, tomorrow will be soon enough. Lance Corporal, return to the school and rest. Jack said, come on, Ben, it's time we get you back to the school. And for once I really was glad to be heading back to the school, but not because of the school. It was because soon I would be with Mira. We climbed in the chopper for the short ride back. Jack looked at me and asked, Ben, what's on your mind? I looked at him and knew I couldn't tell him, so I requested, Jack, not right now. And we rode the rest of the way in silence. I was shocked when the chopper touched down because Mira wasn't there to greet me. I headed towards my room and said, see you in the morning, Jack. I walked to our room, opened the door, and there she was. Mira saw me, walked towards me and asked, Lance Corporal Blaine, you have been indisposed all day, and you are very late arriving back to my room. Now come inside because there are things which we must discuss. As she turned away from me, I ran up behind her and put her in a guillotine chokehold. She fought like a wild woman for a few seconds before she passed out. Present, Yints, Private Airport, Washington, D.C. Now is not the time to dwell on my nightmare about Ben and Stacy's wedding. It was just a dream. It had better been just a dream. The airport FAA liaison enters the room and announces, "Everyone please gather. We have some information on Elizabeth Morgan's flight." It's about frickin' time. As we gather around, he waits for us to get quiet, then he continues, "This is just a short briefing to let you know we have a good idea where the plane crashed. We don't have the exact location because radar contact with the plane was lost on the way down. Coast Guard vessels are preparing to leave for the presumed crash site and should arrive in the vicinity within an hour or so, then we will know more. Are there any questions?" I look at Jack. He gives me a sharp return look and chews some butt. "Excuse me, you're telling me you lost radar contact with the plane on the way down and it was over the ocean? Just how the hell did that happen?" The liaison waffles. "We aren't sure exactly. I can smell the bullshit from 100 miles away. Then I remember something about the time we rescued Ben when he dove off Daddy's sailboat when rescuing Frankie. Now it's my turn, so I bitch. You're telling us it's going to take over an hour to reach the water landing site." I almost said crash site. That is totally unacceptable. With the water temperature this time of year, any survivors will be dead from hypothermia by then. Why the hell can't you immediately send out a chopper for them? He looks like a deer caught in the headlights when he replies, "I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for that question. However, I will go and see if I can get an answer." He retreats from the room. I look at everyone in order. Look, I don't know what sort of bullshit they're trying to feed us, but I for one am not going to swallow it. Jack, you handle things on this end. Get yourself and everyone else on the frickin' horn and call in any and all favors. Linus, you're coming with me. We start to leave the room when we hear, "Present, Maria, Private Airport, Washington, D.C. My princess boss takes charge of the situation, then starts to take off with Linus, and I ask, "Yints, is it okay if I come with both of you?" I wasn't sure what she was going to do with Linus, but sometimes, okay, much of the time. She's a crazy as a moonbat princess boss. And now that I finally have a man, I sure as hell don't want to lose him to one of her crazy antics. Yints laughs and apologizes. "Sorry, Maria, I forgot to include you. Of course you're invited to come with us." Linus smiles at me. I take his hand and he asks, "Yints, what's your plan?" I can't believe what she says next. I'm sure glad I'm coming along to keep Linus safe. Present, Linus, Private Airport, Washington, D.C. I'm not really sure how I feel about Maria yet, but I'm sure as hell too smart to acknowledge that tidbit. I mean, she's awesome in the sack. She's good looking, smart as hell, but are we really compatible? In her mind, we're already a couple, and I bet she's even planning our wedding. But damn, I've only known her a single day, and that's just too fast for me. Maria tags along with us, which is good because we can get to know each other better. I ask Yints, what's your plan? Yints says, "We're going to rent a chopper and go out and search for the survivors because I can't just sit around on my rear and wait for those incompetent nincompoops to do anything. When we find them, Linus, and if they need any help, then since you were a seal, you're going in the water to rescue them." Maria says, "Excuse me? Linus is going to do what?" Yints repeats, "He's going in the water to help them. Do you have a problem with this?" The last thing I need are Yints and Maria fighting over me. So I interject, "Look, you two. I have no problem going in the water if they need help, but not without my wetsuit because Yints, you're right. It's too cold this time of year to stay in the water for more than a few hours." Yints asks, "Okay, Linus, where's your wetsuit?" I reply, "It's back at the extended stay hotel. We can get the chopper to land in the parking lot, and I can go get it." Maria surprises the hell out of me when she says, "And I can go get mine too, because I'm going to help." I ask Maria, "Do you own a wetsuit and know how to swim?" She punches me in the arm and answers, "Linus, just because I was Army and not Navy doesn't mean I don't know how to swim." I want to say, just because you own a wetsuit doesn't mean you know how to swim. But instead I show some intelligence and squeeze her hand. Present, Yints, Private Airport, Washington, D.C. I bite my tongue to keep from laughing at those two, because they remind me of Ben and me when we first met. And Linus, just like Ben, has no idea he's been roped and tied. The branding will come when they get married. I sure as heck hope that he doesn't go crazy like my Ben did and run off on Maria since she's not as forgiving as I am. We find a chopper and a pilot. I call Jack, get the last known coordinates of Liz's plane, and we take off to get the cute couple's wetsuits. Present, Jack, Private Airport, Washington, D.C. I just finished giving the last known coordinates of Liz's plane to Yints after almost having to beat them out of the FAA liaison. I just hang up my mobile phone when it rings again. I answer it and hear, "Jack, this is Mike. I have some good news and some bad news." I want to say what the hell is worse than Liz's plane crash, but I bite my tongue and cautiously reply, okay, Mike, let's hear the bad news first, then the good news. Mike gives me the bad news. Jack, we're damn sure someone put a bomb on that plane, and that's why it went down. And because of the bomb damage and some other reasons that we can't fathom, the plane sank like the proverbial rock. Shit. Someone purposely tried to kill them. My blood boils as I respond, Mike, I want to know who the scumsuckers are that put a bomb on that plane. Mike says, Jack, simmer the hell down because I'm taking care of it. Now do you want to hear the good news? I smile because having worked with Captain M, I know how it's going to be taken care of. Heads are going to roll, literally. I'm much happier when I say, okay, your bad news wasn't that bad. Don't tell me this is another trick where the good news is actually the really bad news. He laughs and answers, Jack, you old SOB. I told you I'd never pull that trick on you again. I interrupt, that's a good thing, otherwise I'd have to kick your butt again. Mike chuckles, in your dreams, old man. Listen, we just happened to have a satellite over the area, and I was lucky enough to get access to it for this mission. We have eyes on 2 life rafts with what appear to be part of the crew on them. Yeah, I had heard that just happened to have excuse before and knew it was BS, but I wasn't going to give him shit about it. I also wasn't surprised that he knew exactly how many of the crew are in the rafts. I'd seen satellite images years back, and even back then they could easily distinguish an object the size of a golf ball. But it did bother me that he said, part of the crew. I query, Mike, how many of the crew are missing? He replies, well, Jack, that's hard to tell because these damn flights of Liz's are so clandestine. Using infrared, we were only able to count 5 passengers in the rafts, which seems a little shy of what we would have expected for her normal entourage. I do the math and realize they are missing 3 people. I respond, well, Mike, all this information is great, but what the hell are you doing about rescuing them? He answers, Jack, I don't know what the hell is going on, but everyone was dragging their feet. I'm sure going to find out why and make whomever is responsible pay for it. So I said screw them all, and we have 2 Marine choppers headed to the location. They should be on site in 20 minutes. Now, is Jennifer Donaldson around? I'd like to talk with her about Ben. Someone else is screwing with my friends? I bristle and say, Mike, if possible, I'd sure like a piece of the person responsible for the slow up. And unfortunately, Jens has left. She got tired of no one doing anything, so she took off with a couple of the team to rent a chopper. Mike gripes, Jack, call her and get her, but back to the main building right now. She's just going to be in the way. I wonder why the hell she would be in the way, but I know better than to bother Mike when he's on a mission, so I answer, Mike, I will call her and get her back here ASAP. 2 more things. First, I think we are short 3 people in the rafts. Would you do a search for them? And second, remember I want a piece of the scumsucker that did this? Present, Tom, Private Airport, Washington, D.C. I see Jack Reynolds talking on his mobile phone, and I know if Jack is here and Jennifer isn't, that he's running the show. So Byron and I wander up close enough so we can kibitz on his conversation. His wife Masha gives us the evil eye, but I ignore it because I hear Jack say, I want a piece of the scumsuckers that did this, and then ends the call. I clear my throat and say, well, then stand in line because we're going after the scumsuckers first. Jack looks at Byron and me, smiles, shakes our hands and challenges us, like hell you are. Shit. You 2 look like hell twice warmed over. Byron's got a broken arm, and you're walking like the sorry old scumsucker you really are. Don't you know at your age you're supposed to be sitting on the porch at some retirement home in a rocking chair? Byron bristles and berates him. Just who are you calling old? You're so old you were there when Moses parted the Red Sea. Jack chides in retaliation. Well, if I saw Moses part the Red Sea, you saw Noah put the animals on the ark. I add to the teasing, Jack, last thing I heard, you were a mall cop in Hawaii, so you're a great one to talk. He gripes, mall cop like hell. I was in the State Patrol. I laugh. So just how much highway is in Hawaii for the State Patrol to cruise? Just like a woman to end all the fun. His wife Masha interrupts, Jack, honey, don't you need to call Jennifer? He says, damn honey, you're right. Guys, let me call Jens. Jack moves away to call Jennifer. I look at his wife and she gives me a rather peculiar smile. Now what the hell is she thinking? Present, Masha, Private Airport, Washington, D.C. I listen to Tom, Byron, and my husband Jack. If I do not put an end to their silly posturing, it will continue all night. So I gently remind Jack to call Jennifer. Yes, I was also listening in on the phone call with Mike. During the time at the spy school, when he first contacted my husband and Ben, he was of serious interest to my government. But now he is of major interest to my government, and they are more than highly interested in the current mission to find Elizabeth Morgan's flight. I love my husband with my whole heart. It wasn't supposed to happen, but happen it did when Ben introduced us in Moscow. You see, it wasn't a real introduction. It was an arranged meeting. It was determined that Ben couldn't be coerced to divulge information after the monumental failure with Miranda Sedankina. However, Jack was thought to be highly susceptible, so the meeting was planned and I was to become his girlfriend. I had no idea I would actually fall in love with him, but I was swept off my feet. Unlike Miranda, though, I was older and had just enough information on just the right people in my government that I was allowed to semi-retire from working for them. I say semi-retire because there are still times they call on me to help with minor things. The funny thing is Jack, my husband, never did, and I now know never will divulge any of the information they wanted. And believe me, I have tried. He always says, loose lips sink ships. So I am a happy and content soccer mom, as the Americans like to call me, who is also just a little bit of a spy. But I would never give my old country any information which would jeopardize my new country, because just as with Jack, I have fallen in love with my new country. After my husband leaves to call Jennifer, I look at Tom and Byron and smile. Tom says, "A penny for your thoughts." I continue the smile and state, "Your American euphemisms are so quaint and amusing. However, Tom, I am thankful you didn't follow it with the normal line you use on available women. Otherwise, I would have been highly offended." He grins and lies, "Masha, I don't know what you're talking about." I knew he would fall for my trap, so I smile and reply, "Are you trying to tell me you don't normally ask? A penny for your thoughts and $10 for your body?" Byron starts laughing and says, "Damn, Tom, your legend precedes you." Tom says, "I don't know what you're talking about. Now would you mind moving out of the way so we can get a cup of coffee?" I continue to taunt, "So you can tell some other sweet young girl. You like your coffee like you like your women, hot, instant, and cheap. By the way, you two both need a bath." I hear Byron laughing as I walk away. Present, Byron, Private Airport, Washington, D.C. Damn, this isn't Tom's day. No, that's not right. This isn't Tom's week. The only good thing that's happened is he and none of the team died on the mission to save him. Masha handed his hat to him, and I just can't stop laughing. How the hell did she hear about Tom? Tom looks at me and gripes, "What the hell happened to you? Did you get bit by a laughing hyena?" I continue to laugh and respond, "Come on, Tom. Don't get your nose all bent out of joint. Masha was just having fun with you, and didn't even mention your black eye." He touches his face and says, "Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I owe Linus's new female panther something for giving this to me." Tom's entirely too upset with Maria, so I grab him by the shoulders, look him in the eye and argue, "Tom, you need to snap out of it. I know you're upset because the team came and rescued you and then got injured. But damn it, Tom, what did you expect? Because we're not just a team, we're a family. And like it or not, this family has gained one more member named Maria. Shit, Tom, if it wasn't for her, we would have lost Hammer and possibly Todd. So yeah, you owe her. You owe her the thanks and respect, just as if she was your daughter." I watch Tom's eyes. They finally soften as he chuckles and states, "Byron, you know I hate it when you're right. But I sure as hell never thought I'd have a daughter that could kick my butt." I laugh back and say, "I wonder if she can cook as good as she looks?" Tom continues with a chuckle, "Damn, I could go for some homemade tacos." Changing the subject, just how in the hell do you think Masha knows so much about me? I look at Tom and suggest, "I would say there's a lot more to Masha than the soccer mom she pretends to be. Now let's get our cup of coffee and see what sort of help we can provide." Present, Yints, in the chopper, Washington, D.C. We just get ready to touch down at the hotel when my phone rings. I check the caller ID. It's Jack, and I say, "Jack, what's going on?" He tells me all about Captain M's work and that 2 Marine choppers are headed to area. He also says that Mike wants me to abort my mission because we will be in the way, and he wants us to come back to the main building so he can talk with me about Ben. I complain, "Jack, I'm not sure I like Mike's idea or if I even trust him." Jack answers, "Look, Yints, if Mike said he'd take care of things, I know him and he will take care of things. You really should come back here because he's not someone you want to get pissed at you." I reply, "Yeah, well, he'd better not mess up or he'll find out what it's like to have me pissed at him." I look at Linus and Maria and explain, "Well, looks like we're headed back to the airport in the main building." Then I order, "Pilot, take us back to the airport." Linus asks, "So why the change in plans?" I answer, "It looks like Jack has Captain M, Mike on the mission, and he already has choppers headed to the water landing site." Linus nods his head. "Well, if Mike is taking care of it, then we're not needed." Maria interjects, "Yints, did I hear something about finding Ben?" I answer, "Yeah, Mike wanted to talk to me about Ben." Linus adds, "Damn, Yints, if we can get Mike working on this, then Ben's as good as found." Yeah, Linus may be right. I've heard things about the former Major M, and this conversation has given me renewed hope. I just have to find him before my terrible nightmare. No, I can't even think about that. Present, Jack, Private Airport, Washington, D.C. Tom and Byron wander up to me after my call with Yints, and Tom asks, Jack, we'd really like to know if there's any way we can help. I glance around the room to see if anyone's listening, pull him and Byron over to the side of the room and say, I don't know if you guys know Captain M, or Mike as we call him now, but he's been able to determine the crash site coordinates and has also been able to confirm there are 2 life rafts with 5 survivors. Someone was impeding the rescue, so he has 2 marine choppers headed toward the rafts as we speak. I check my watch and continue. They should be on site in 15 minutes. I'm concerned because the rafts are 3 people shy of what the plane was carrying. Byron says, Jack, Liz is much more resourceful than most people know, so I wouldn't get too concerned until the rescue team arrives and assesses the situation. Besides, if they are Marines, they will search to hell and back again before they give up. I nod my head and continue. You're right about that. Anyway, if you guys want to help, see if you guys can figure out who is impeding the rescue. Mike said he'd look into it, but frankly I'd like to find out who it is first. Tom replies, Jack will get right on it. Come on, Byron. I ask, I'd like a word with Byron alone if I could. Tom gives me a funny look and says, you damn jarheads always seem to have some sort of alternate game running. Just don't let it get in the way of what you've asked me to do. As he heads away, I look at Byron and ask, is Tom going to be okay? Byron affirms, yeah, he's just pissed right now because our team took some pretty hard hits rescuing him and he feels guilty about it. Thanks for giving him something to do, because it will help keep his mind of things. I smile and say, hey, I hope he finds the scumsucker that's blocking this rescue because I want to take a walk with that scumsucker. Byron gives me a knowing smile and answers, just remember, even though we're wounded, when Tom finds them we've got your 6. Now I'd better go help Tom. He walks away as I see Jens' chopper touch down. Present, Mike, Captain M. Undisclosed location, Washington, D.C. I watch my team as they handle the rescue and other operations, and for once wish I had a few more team members. I'd love to put some of them on tracking down who the hell provides the bottleneck on rescuing Liz and her people. Oh, I have some good ideas since she and the Truth Network have pissed off more people in D.C. than you can shake a stick at, and I'm sure some or many of them are out for her blood. But they don't realize that in this case, even if Liz dies, the Truth Network would continue. Once the real American people got a taste of unbiased reporting and not opinionated bullshit, they clamored for more. Shit. The Truth Network basically shut down all the other national news networks. One of my team members announces, sir, it looks like Jennifer Donaldson's helicopter is back at the main building. Good. I really need to talk to her about some other things first, and then we need to talk about Ben. I command. I need to call her from my private office. Keep me apprised of the operations and interrupt me if you hit any snags. I start my wheelchair toward my office. Present, Jens, Private Airport, Washington, D.C. The chopper lands at the main building and I order, you can spin the engines down and catch a nap, but please stay here in case we need you. The pilot replies, thanks, I'll hit the head and be right back. As we bail out of the chopper, I notice Maria is holding Linus's hand and sticking to him like glue. I wish to hell that I had done that with Ben. Yeah, I needed to go and take care of Daddy and Mom. I can't help but feel that if I had been by Ben's side, like Maria is by Linus's side, we would have been married and living happily ever after. I shake my head and wonder, with the new assignment Ben and I have, will we ever see the happily ever after part of our life, or will we be destined to fight forever? I remember our one real battle together and decide even fighting forever by his side would be happily ever after. Well, this is all a bit premature because first I have to find Ben and he's damn good at hiding. I just have to make sure I find him before that damn nightmare. No, I have to push that out of my mind. We no sooner get into the building than my mobile phone rings. I check the caller ID and see some crazy as hell number. I answer it with, who the hell are you? He replies, Jennifer Donaldson. This is Mike, and you and I need to have a little talk in private. Find Jack Reynolds, get a private room and I will call you back. Damn, I resent Mike more than a little bit. He had Ben and Jack doing some crazy sneaky missions which I couldn't even get information about. But I had hopes that he was going to help us find Ben. I answer, Mike, give me about 10 minutes and call us back. I ask, Linus, please find Jack and Maria, find us a private room. Mike has some information for us that's for our ears only. Linus replies, well, Jack and Matt are already headed this way. Maria adds, Jens, I think we should move back to the chopper because it's probably the most private place around here. I reply, thanks Maria, that makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. I sure as heck don't like what's going on around here, and I only trust you guys right now. The guys walk up and I ask, Matt, how are Megs and Jim doing? He smiles and says, they are both fast asleep on cots in the other room. Jack says you're having some issues. What can I do to help? I explain, I might be overly paranoid, but I sure as heck don't like our exposure here, especially with what's going on with Liz. I'd love it if you and Jim could head back to the hotel and gear up just in case. Linus interrupts, Jens, There's no need for them to head to the hotel. If he wakes up Jim, then we can head over to the C-130 and retrieve the gear we left there. I look at Linus and say, I think I need to know more about this C-130 later. But Linus, you're in charge of securing this airfield for us. Linus asks, Jens, what are you concerned about? I look him in the eyes and theorize, Linus. Call it women's intuition, but if someone went after Liz, we could be next. I want you guys to gear up heavy. In fact, because we're at an airport, if we had some man-pads, man-portable air defense systems, shoulder-launched surface-to-air missiles, it would be great. Plus, we sure as heck could use some comm sets. Jack questions, Jens, you can't be serious. Masha walks up and interrupts, Jack, I think all of you should listen to Jennifer. I smile at her and just wonder what sort of soccer mom she is. But then I realize if I ever become a soccer ma, I will be just like her. Linus answers, Jens, if you two are right, then I'd better move my butt. Maria, please stay with Jens until I get back. Matt says, Linus, I'll go get Jim and meet you at the C-130. Linus answers, Matt, by the time you get there, the C-130 will be on high alert. The challenge response will be crypt for you and kicker for us. As Linus take off, I notice that Maria looks worried and I attempt to comfort her. Maria, Linus has been through things like this before. He's going to be fine. We head out to the chopper and I notice Masha is latched onto Jack's arm like a leech. Again, I wish I had been smart enough to latch onto Ben's arm that way. I ask the pilot, we're going to use your chopper as a private meeting room. Head inside, grab some food, but stay close in case we need you. He takes off. As we all squeeze into the chopper, my phone rings and I wonder how the heck Mike does things like this. I answer, okay Mike, we're in a secure location. He answers, Jennifer, it was a good call for you to hold the meeting in the chopper. It's probably the most secure location you have right now other than the C-130. So who are the other 3 people in the chopper with you? I wonder how and what he knows about the C-130 and the other 3 with me, but I know he won't tell me. I answer, Maria, my girl Friday, Jack and his wife Masha. Now what did you want to tell us? I can't believe what Mike tells us next. I don't know if I'm pissed and happy or happy and pissed, or if I can even be both at the same time. This information certainly changes things. Present Liz on the life raft. The plane sinks so fast that it almost pulls the life rafts under with it. I know with it gone that it will be that much harder for search and rescue to find us. Since the pilot called in the Mayday early enough, the delay in response really bothers me. They should have been waiting for us. Something doesn't make sense to me. Alexei isn't doing well, and I think he's in shock. Shit, I'm almost in shock too, and I can't believe both Mira and Ira are gone. I think back about the many times I know they saved me, and wonder how many other times they saved me that I didn't even know about. I start to shiver when Bernie hugs me and says, Liz, we're all going to die from hypothermia if we don't find some way to stay warm. I realize Alexei is shivering. As I look at the girls, Zarika is the only one that's awake and she's shivering too. We're all wet, cold and freezing. I request Bernie, see if this life raft has a rain fly. If so, let's get it out, cover up with the rain fly and hug each other for warmth. Since I'm still hugging Alexei, I nudge him and ask, Alexei, I really need for you to help me right now. Do you think that you can? He responds, of course, Ms. Morgan, my sisters told me to make sure I take care of and protect you. I smile as I'm very pleased Alexei will be Mira and Ira's legacy. I ask, because I don't speak Russian very well, would you please explain to Zarika about hypothermia? That reminds me, do you know what hypothermia is? Explain that they need to hug each other and cover up with the rain fly from their life raft. Alexei responds, Ms. Morgan, I understand hypothermia and I will do as you request. He starts speaking to Zarika in Russian. Present, Zarika, on the life raft. I am very cold, colder than I ever remember. The nice lady's brother Alexei tells me about something called hyperthermica. I don't completely understand the concept, but I do understand that I must hug Yasmin very tight and cover up with the cold plastic rain cover for the life raft. At first it makes me colder, but then I start to warm up and feel better. Yasmin starts to wake up and she asks, Zarika, I am so cold. Are we dead? The silly goose, I reply, no Yasmin. We got wet with cold water leaving the airplane and it is causing something called hyperthermica. Alexei told me about it and said we needed to hug each other and stay wrapped up in this piece of plastic. Yasmin asks, I don't remember getting off the airplane. Did the nice lady help me? I answer, I helped you and she helped you, but she did not make it out of the airplane before it sank. Yasmin sniffles, I will miss her. She was sometimes mean to us but saved us and then brought the Liz lady to us so we could come to America. Did everyone else make it out of the airplane? I tell her, the 2 pilots also sank with the airplane. She sniffles some more and then she calls, Present, Yasmin, on the life raft. I decide I need to talk to Alexei. I am worried he is sad because he lost both of his sisters. I call to him. Alexei, can you hear me? He answers, of course, Yasmin. It is good to know you are awake. I say, I am sorry about your sister, Mira. Both your sisters were nice to us and were responsible for saving us and bringing us to America. I hear very much sadness when he answers, yes, I only knew them such a short time, but I grew to love both of them. Now I am an orphan, but I have promised myself I will live in a manner to honor my two perfect sisters. I have an idea and offer, Alexei. You do not have to be an orphan. I will ask our husband to adopt you, and you will be my and Zarika's son. He is such a kind and wonderful man, I know he would gladly do this for us. He responds, Yasmin, thank you for the offer, however, I will dedicate my life to Ms. Morgan. It is what my sisters would have wished. I reply, well, I hope that we will remain close friends and do not worry because I am sure our husband, who is a famous movie star, has all of America searching for us. In fact, I think I hear a helicopter. Present Liz on the life raft. It's much better being under the rain fly as we've stopped her shivering and are getting quite warm. Yasmin wakes up and she and Alexei have a conversation. I can't make out all of what's said, but it seems to have comforted Alexei some when he wasn't being slightly rude to Yasmin. Finally, I hear what sounds like a helicopter. I say, Bernie, where's the flare gun? We search the raft and find the flare gun. Bernie uncovers us, fires the flare into the air, and we watch the chopper as it heads towards us. It's more than one chopper, and as they get closer, I begin to get a peculiar feeling. When they're close enough, I realize why and yell, quick, everyone get out of the rafts. Present, Stacy. Waking up the next morning. What the hey? If I thought I was having weird Stanley Kubrick dreams, Ben must be having fracking nightmares from The Shining, 1980 movie directed by Stanley Kubrick and starring Jack Nicholson, and My Bloody Wedding, 2010 movie about a demon-possessed bride, combined. He woke me up tossing, turning and yelling, no, no, oh hell no, and then something about a bloody wedding dress. Sometime during the night, Ben had rolled over and was spooning me. It feels really good, but I need to see if he's all right. I roll towards him and notice he even has Bo concerned. Bo has his head by us and is snorting, trying to wake Ben. I reach up, gently touch Ben's face and say, Ben, wake up, you're having a bad dream. His eyes snap open with this crazy wild look in his eyes that I've never seen before. Then he hugs the heck out of me and says, thank God it was only a bad dream. I enjoy him holding me but finally break the mood by saying, that sounded more like a nasty nightmare to me. Do you want to talk about it? Then Bo interrupts our interlude by trying to nose me away from Ben, and Ben says, hell no, I don't want to talk about it. Come on, let's move it. Daylight's burning. He jumps up and orders me, Stacy, you stand watch while I take care of my morning business. I grump back, hey, whatever happened to ladies first? He yells back over his shoulder, in war there are no ladies. Besides, you snooze, you lose. I grumpily get out of my nice warm sleeping bag, grab my rifle and SLLS as I was ordered. Whoever said war is hell was sure right because I was really enjoying our activities earlier this morning. And Grandmama was right. Men are really strange, but some of them are also pretty exciting. Present Ben. Waking up the next morning. Damn, I just had the nightmare to end all nightmares. I think it was worse than the face nightmare or the captured nightmare. Oh, it started out nice enough since I was an observer at my wedding, and it wasn't too bad for a wedding, which is really sort of a bachelor's funeral. I liked my tux since it made me look like Bond, James Bond. But then it shocked the hell out of me when Stacy, not Miss Donaldson, was the bride. Yeah, what the hell was Dreamland Ben doing getting married in the first place and then to Stacy Summers, not Miss Donaldson? Dreamland Ben must be a whole lot more stupid than actual Ben because he went along with the whole wedding fiasco and even seemed happy about it. Then it all went to hell in a hurry. Yents, I mean Miss Donaldson, stormed into the church right as the minister pronounced them man and wife. Yelled new, you can't marry that skanky little bitch. You promised me. She aimed her M4 at Stacy and I couldn't believe it. She unloaded a full mag, less one, into Stacy. Stacy's beautiful white dress instantly turned red. Dreamland Ben looked at Miss Donaldson and yelled, you bitch. You just killed my wife. Miss Donaldson yelled in reply, you runaway scumsucker. You promised to marry me first, and if I can't have you, no one can have you. Dreamland Ben again yelled, you bitch, I'm going to kill you. She taunted him, come and get some, you lying scumsucker. They ran towards each other and started a huge fight in the middle of the church aisle. The dream has me really shaken. Do I really have repressed feelings like that for Stacy? If so and I acted on them, would this dream be a premonition like so many of my dreams? I need time to think, so I leave Stacy on watch and head off in the bushes to complete my morning business. I guess I spend a bit too much time because I hear Stacy complain, hey, There are other people that have to use the bathroom in the morning too. I come back, but I sure as hell can't look Stacy in the eyes. Not right now. Present, Stacy. Waking up the next morning, something is as wrong as two left shoes with Ben when he comes back. He won't even make eye contact with me. He reminds me of, I know, a skittish as heck horse. Worse than even knacker. I really hate that name. When we first found him, I wonder, if you treat a skittish man like a skittish horse, will it have the same effect? I softly ask, Ben, will you SLLS while I take care of my morning business? I slowly walk towards him and softly say, Ben, I really didn't get a chance to say thank you for saving my life again yesterday. I don't know how many times that makes you have saved my life, but you have my promise that somehow, someday and some way I will repay you. I touch him on the shoulder as I walk past, but he even flinches a little from my touch. Well, that didn't work quite like I thought it would. I start to take care of things and begin to think, what would Grandmama do? Present, Ben. Waking up the next morning, what the hell? Stacy is treating me like, well, I don't even know what she's treating me like because it's strange as hell. She talking all soft and sultry to me. Wait a minute. Oh, hell no. She's trying to seduce me. She even touches me and I just about jump out of my skin. I'm glad she's busy because it gives me time to come up with a plan for today. I sure as hell can't be getting into a relationship with her or any other woman. Not if I can't give them children. I think hard and come up with the perfect plan for today. Stacy walks out of the bushes. I smile at her and she says, well, that's the Ben that I know. So what are your orders for today? I reply, we're going to be busy as hell today. First, let's have a quick breakfast. Then we need to approach the house again, just as if it hasn't been cleared since we don't know if any banditos came back to it last night. And we'll remember to watch for the IEDs everywhere. Then I need to deal with those IEDs before one of us, or the horses gets the hell blown out of our legs. I have to figure out what triggers them so I can shut it off, if that's possible. Then I want to give the family as proper a burial as we can, dispose of the bandito rubbish, and then have a look at the barn we saw briefly last night. Plus I have some other things for you today. She smiles at me and replies, that sounds like a really busy day. What other things do you have in mind for me? I grin and explain, you, my young lady, are finally going to get to groom these smelly horses you like to complain about. And then it's time, because you did a pretty good job last night but made a few mistakes, to concentrate on your tactical training. This screwed-up house is a perfect place for you to practice, you see, and we need to work on your rifle skills. She starts the breakfast MREs without even being asked and continues to SLLS. Then she asks, is there anything else? Because I don't see how we can do all this in just one day. I reply, yes, one more thing. One of us will always stand watch today while the other works. And I think if we don't run into any more banditos, we will spend a couple days around here and let my leg heal. Well, that last statement was a mistake. Stacy comes over and orders, Ben, forgive me. I forgot all about your leg. Drop your pants and let me inspect your wound. I start to argue. Present, Stacy. Waking up the next morning, son of a gun. With all the excitement already this morning, I forgot about Ben's leg. He reminds me and I reply, Ben, forgive me. I forgot all about your leg. Drop your pants and let me inspect your wound. Then he argues with me, Stacy, really my leg's fine and you don't need to look at it. I notice that he blushes and wonder what the heck that is all about. I sit on the ground and demand, like heck, if you're going to act like a child, then I will too. I'm not moving from this place until you drop your pants and let me see your leg. He finally relents and whines. Okay, but I tell you it's fine. Then he finally drops his pants. I look at his wound and it is really good looking, but we will need to change the bandages sometime soon. I stand up and notice he's really blushing and I tease, what's wrong? Is the big strong Marine afraid that I might take advantage of him? This proves to be a minor mistake on my part when Ben gets a really grumpy look and says, Stacy, don't ever joke about something like that with me. Wow, he's much worse than a skittish horse. It's sort of like, I know. It's like he's PMS. Now, that I understand. I smile at him and apologize. Look, Ben, it seems like everything I've done today has upset you. Please forgive me. Then I go to my pack, pull out a chocolate bar, hand it to him, and continue. Please accept this as a peace offering. He finally apologizes to me. Stacy, I'm sorry. Now I don't want to talk about it, but that nightmare really shook me up today, and it's probably going to take a while for me to settle down. I'm not sure what the heck sort of nightmare it was, and I really want to talk to him about it. But I know he's not going to discuss it, at least not right now. I grab the MREs, hand him his, and suggest, perhaps your breakfast and that chocolate bar will make you feel better. Bon appetit. Ben offers, thanks, Stacy. I will continue to SLLS as I eat my breakfast so you can relax and take it easy. Unfortunately, I can't relax. Ben has trained me well and I can't stop SLLSing. Not while we still might be in danger. Present bin new day. I proudly noticed that even though I told Stacy she could relax, her head is still on a swivel and she continues to SLLS while she eats her breakfast. It's a good thing because it lets me concentrate on a serious problem I haven't solved yet. You see, I think we were damn lucky last night not to have tripped one of the shotgun shell IEDs. Shit, if it wasn't for Bo, I would have already been a victim of one. Perhaps it was a mistake to leave the house last night, but I really couldn't stand sleeping in the filth and shit the banditos did to that house. Stacy didn't see what I saw in the back bedrooms, but it was brutal. Dead bodies stacked like cordwood. And now because of that decision, we need to safely approach the house and make sure it's clear again. All this without getting the hell blown out of us by an IED. So far, the only safe places I know of are the paths leading to the front and back doors. But they are also perfect funnels of death. I know how the banditos took the house. They lost a crap load of men doing it, and once the back door was blown, I think the sapper made a mistake when he wired the back door. They had access to the house. I notice Stacy is still SLLSing when she asks me, "Ben, you seem to be deep in thought. What's going on?" I explain everything to her and say, "I'm just trying to come up with the best plan on how to see if the house is clear." She smiles at me and suggests, "I think we should do it cavalry style. How about if I ride up to the house on Knacker, stop sideways to the house at the front, and start yelling? If someone shoots at me, I can duck behind Knacker and ride off. If they come out and chase me, then you can ride up on Bo like you did last night and shoot them." I think for a couple moments and say, "I sure hate using you for bait again. If we keep it up sooner or later, you're going to get caught." She smiles at me and says, "Well, if that happens, then I know you will rescue me." Yeah, but that's not the sort of caught I meant, and she doesn't need to be intentionally scared, at least not right now. I think a bit more and say, "Okay, I like this plan, but it has one big flaw. What if the banditos don't go after the bait? So if no one fires at you, I will come up to the house on Bo and dismount. You will hold Bo while I use Knacker as a shield to approach the house." She smiles and says, "I like that plan because I didn't think about them not chasing me, but you're right. They might wait to see what happens." I say, "Okay, before we implement this op plan, let's start your training for the day." Present, Stacy. First training lesson, mental preparation. Once again, Ben doesn't treat me like a teenager, but lets me not only come up with the op plan, he helps me to see the mistakes I made in my planning. If he keeps this up, I might take advantage of him. Then we start my first training lesson for today when Ben asks, "Stacy, how are fights won?" I think for a minute and respond, "By the person with the best guns." He smiles and says, "Stacy, that's the typical answer, and just like many other times, the typical answer is wrong. Try again." I think a bit longer and offer, "The next thing that comes to mind is by the biggest or strongest person, but I know that's also wrong, so please tell me." He says, "Stacy, fights are won in the mind. It's the person who is the most mentally prepared that will prevail in a fight. The weapons are just tools. It doesn't matter if you pick up a rifle or a pistol or a baseball bat or even a rock. The weapon cannot win the fight by itself. It's the preparation of the person wielding the weapon that is critical." I reply, "Wow, I was way off base in my thinking, but now that you mention it, I can see you're right. I mean, we've had the better weapons in many wars, but haven't won them. So does that mean we weren't mentally prepared?" Ben says, "You must be thinking about past conflicts. In both cases, our soldiers were mostly well prepared, but the politicians were not willing to do what was necessary to achieve victory. One thing I can say for certain is that those who use terror as a tactic don't think like you or me. They see others as targets or obstacles to achieving their goals. If you think you can reason with them, you're being naive and risk becoming their next victim. Our leaders fail to recognize that." He then shifts back to my training. "Tell me, what was the biggest emotion you felt last night when we cleared the house?" I immediately responded, "Fear. I was so scared I almost lost it." Ben nods his head and says, "You're right. When you face an armed conflict, the single most overriding emotion you will face is fear. Anyone who says they have no fear is either a liar or a fool, because fear is a natural response, and we need to teach you to make the fear you feel to be your friend. How you deal with and control fear is one of the biggest factors of whether or not you will survive the confrontation." He pauses, so I worry and ask, "So how do I learn to make fear my friend?" He answers, "The best way to compensate or overcome your fear is by having confidence in your skills and knowing they will work in a dangerous situation. You develop and refine those skills through constant practice. Remember how hard it was to SLLS when I first taught you. Now, since you've practiced it, you have become better at it. In fact, even as I am teaching you, I notice how well you're SLLSing." I smile at him and say, "Thanks, I have an excellent teacher, even if he's pretty old." Ben chuckles but continues, "Stacy, there's a hierarchy of threat management that we need to teach you. First, avoid the confrontation. We are in a war, and for the most part, this option is off the table. However, there are times, Like when the offers hugely outnumber us that this will be the only option we can take which will assure our survival. I nod my head and respond, that makes sense to me. But couldn't we have avoided the bandidos in the house? He smiles and says, of course we could have, but after I told you about what they did to the family and we both saw what they did to knacker our emotions, took that option off the table. Second, try to evade the confrontation. If you're SLLSing and have good situational awareness of what's going on around you, then you can evade the situation. I sort of did this on the bus hijacking. I knew that avoidance was impossible, so I evaded being captured on the bus. You wisely did the same thing later. I smile at him and confirm. I just asked myself what would Ben do, and then did it. He laughed and continues, finally. Counter the confrontation. If you can't avoid or evade the threat, then you have to counter the threat as vigorously as possible. It's not the time to play nice. You must think and act not only like the terrors, you must become even more ruthless than the terrors if you are going to beat them. Remember, confidence is everything. I reply, sort of like the old saying, if he picks up a rock, I pick up a baseball bat. Ben surprises me when he emphasizes, no, it's more a situation where you shoot him before he even picks up the rock. I think about what Ben has said when he asks, how does this make you feel? I reply, all that you've said makes sense to me. And I really know you're asking me once again if I could kill someone. I believe what you told me about how they think differently than we do. It's the only thing that makes sense for why they would act the way they do. So yes, if we were threatened and we couldn't avoid or evade the threat, I would kill them. He smiles at me and says with a pretty bad Asian accent, you learn well, young grasshopper. Now let's see how your oplin works. Present Ben, clearing the house again. Stacy is impressive. She's a hell of a learner and pretty damn logical for a woman. She reminds me of a younger Miss Donaldson without the annoyance of all the flirting. She did, however, mention taking advantage of me, which I nipped in bud. I think I've created a monster. No, not Stacy. Bo. He starts bothering me about the peanut butter out of my MRE. So I load up a cracker, give it to him, and he smacks his lips like crazy. Stacy watches and laughs. That's still the funniest thing I've ever seen a horse do. But I'm glad the horses are getting something besides the grass they eat. We really need to see if there's some grain for them somewhere around the house. Then Patches starts to bother her, and Stacy also loses her peanut butter. Yeah, it's pretty damn funny to watch the horses react to the peanut butter. I instruct Stacy, one of the nice things about the M4 and AK platforms is they have a pistol grip. So, many of the firearm fundamentals you learned while firing your pistol you can use with your rifle. She answers, you're right, but I sure don't like the trigger on my AK. I had checked her AK, and nothing was wrong with the trigger. It's a battle rifle, not a sniper rifle, so what it has is a perfectly normal trigger. Then I get an idea. Stacy, I think I'm going to give you the M4 because it has a hell of a nice custom trigger, and I will take your AK. She's all excited as she erupts. So I get the cool black rifle instead of this old beat-up wooden one. I nod my head and answer, you sure do. Now come over here and let me show you how it operates. I take my time, especially with the ACOG sight, but Stacy catches right on. I order, okay, sports the M4. She asks first, should I actually fire it? Won't it alert any banditos that might be in the house? I nod my head, yes, fire at that small rock by the tree over there. And if it does alert them, then they might come outside to see what's going on. I watch as she does an excellent but slightly slow job, then fires at the rock, which is only about 15 feet away. Her shot is low. She complains, well, the trigger is much better on this, and I thought I was aiming right at the rock, but my shot went low. I smile at her and say, yes, I knew it would. Look at how high the ACOG sight is above the barrel. That's called sight offset. With the normal open M4 sights, your shots will be about 2 inches low at 10 to 15 feet. With the ACOG on top of it, your shots are going to be more like 3 inches low at the same distance. I watch her think and she says, so the AK didn't have this problem because the sights were right on the barrel. Does this mean I have to aim high on all my shots? If so, what the heck is the scope good for? I answer, Stacy, I really like how you're always thinking and I love the questions you ask. The ACOG is sighted in to 100 yards, which means if you hold the dot on the target at 100 yards and do all the other rifle fundamentals correctly, you will hit exactly where you aim. The sight offset is a close-range phenomena and gets less as you approach 100 yards. Now on shots further than 100 yards, you have to aim higher than the dot. We will talk about this more later, but for right now on anything close, like when we're clearing the house, you need to aim about 2 inches high. Now weapons check, and it's time to roll. I watch her perform her weapons check, then she looks at me and surprises the hell out of me when she says, present, Stacy, clearing the house again. The M4 is really a much nicer rifle than the AK, and it doesn't even kick as much. I didn't tell Ben, because I don't want him to think I'm a sissy, but my shoulder is a little sore from last night. I sport the M4 look at Ben and say, Semper Fi, do or die, shot the scumsuckers in the eye. He chuckles and replies, Semper Fi, Stacy. That's not quite right, but in this case it's probably better. I hold out my fist, we bump fists, I look at him and say, watch my butt. Ben corrects me, even though it wasn't a mistake. You mean cover your six? I lie, yeah, that's what I meant. I turn away and walk over to Knacker, knowing that after my not-so-subtle hint Ben is indeed watching my butt. I turn just to make sure he is, yes he is, and hop up on Knacker. Patches comes over, gives me a funny look. I stroke her on the neck and say, it's okay Patches, I'll be riding you later. I watch as Ben walks over to Bo. Bo kneels, Ben get on his back. Bo stands up and Ben says, okay, remind me of the op plan. I recite, I'm going to slowly approach the house while I SLLS for any movement. If I don't see anyone, then I stop Knacker at the far end of the path sideways to the house and call for help. If a bandito comes out, then I will slip off the side of Knacker away from the house and leave. If no banditos come out of the house, I wait for you to ride up with Bo, and you will use Knacker as a shield and we will clear the house. He smiles at me and says, good job. Now let's roll. I correct him. Don't you mean let's ride? Present Ben, Oplan. Stacy hits the standoff position at the end of the path and yells, hello, is anyone home? She waits a few moments and says, hello, is anyone in the house? I really need some help, I'm injured. No one fires or comes out of the house, so I ride up on Bo, bring Patches and say, Stacy, I'm changing the oplan. When I do this, it's called a frago for fragmentary order change. Get off of Knacker with him between you and the house. She does as ordered and I do the same. I move over beside her and say, okay, here's the frago. I'm going to fire on the house. She asks, what will that do? I answer, well, I don't know of many people, other than me, that would let someone fire at the house they're in without retaliation. She says, I bet you're right. I put my AK over Knacker's back and let fly, emptying a full mag less one shot into the house. Then I do a tactical reload. We wait and nothing happens, so I say, present, Stacy. Second training lesson, ready positions? Ben says, I don't think anyone is in the house, but I'm still using Knacker for a shield as I approach the porch. I ask, should I cover you? Ben answers, yes, but use your pistol and don't fire unless I actually go down. I sling the M4 over my shoulder and pull my pistol. Ben notices and says, okay, we need to do some serious work on your tactical skills. When I get to the porch and make sure the living room is clear, haul your butt up onto the porch as quickly as possible. I SLLS like crazy as Ben heads to the porch using Knacker as a shield. When he gets close enough to the porch, he lets Knacker go and Knacker runs back to Bo and Patches. His ears are back. Now he's all upset, so I stroke him as I continue to SLLS. I notice when Ben makes sure the living room is clear and signals for me. I run to the front porch and stand beside him. Ben says, okay, Stacy, we're changing your role for this mission. You won't have to cover my six, because with the horses out here, they will raise hell if anyone comes up. I interrupt. Okay, then what am I supposed to do? Ben answers, you are going to watch how I clear this house. I ask, should I use my rifle or pistol? Ben answers, check your pistol and use it. Ben begins my instruction, Stacy, since you didn't get to see this last night, I want you to carefully observe the ready positions I use with my rifle and pistol while I clear the house and how I move. I will briefly tell you the name of each position, tell you why I'm using it, and give the strengths and weaknesses of each. He continues, a ready position is the way that you hold your weapon when you are in a possible combat situation. No single ready position will work in every combat situation. That's why you need to learn all of them and then know which one to use in each circumstance because the positions are situational dependent. They are also similar between pistol and rifle. The biggest difference is there are only 3 rifle-ready positions while there are 4 pistol-ready positions. I remark, when I was taught to shoot pistol, no one told me about ready positions. They made me concentrate on how I stood, how I held my pistol, and how I squeezed the trigger. Ben explains, that's because they were teaching you how to shoot at targets and targets don't normally shoot back. I'm sure they taught you the Weaver or modified Weaver stance. I answer, yes they did. Ben answers, well in combat we don't have the luxury to place our feet in any particular stance. So we need to be able to fire with our feet in any position. However, we still need to make sure to lean into the weapon. I recite, yes, nose over toes. Ben says, that's right, nose over toes. Now watch me. I watch Ben carefully as he pulls his pistol, holds it straight out in front like he's firing at someone, and then lowers it towards the ground at a 45-degree angle. Then he moves it quickly back up to firing position and lowers it several times. He says, this is the most common ready position. It's called the low ready position or guard position used by Jeff Cooper during his modern technique of the pistol. You hold the muzzle of the gun down at a 45-degree angle from the eye target line. It keeps the muzzle off the target and away from non-hostiles, but also takes very little movement to bring the gun up on target. The problem is the gun gets heavy, and you end up holding lower than you should. Then you bring the gun up quickly, and it's hard to stop in the exact position and get a quick shot. You almost always under or over travel. I say and then immediately wish I hadn't opened my mouth. But on TV, they always hold the gun upward towards the ceiling. Ben interrupts, and they are wrong, plus they are waving it all over the place in dramatic fashion. So then what do they do when they finally find a bad guy? I say, they chamber around. Ben says, so they go into a hostile situation with an unloaded weapon. Do you know what you call an unloaded weapon? I shake my head no. Ben answers, you call it a club. If they did that in the real world, they would be shot. Okay, watch me as I move into the house. I observe as he brings the rifle up to his shoulder, just like he's going to fire it. Then he angles the muzzle down towards the ground and turns his head from side to side and says, this is called the low ready position for the rifle and is the one I use the most. You bring the weapon up on target and drop the muzzle until you can turn your head and look in any direction. The problem with this ready position is if your target is below you, your weapon will obscure the view of the target. He continues, now I'm going to pie or slice the doorway. I watch as he keeps his rifle in low ready position and slowly moves around the doorway. He reaches the other side of the doorway and says, okay, I'm entering the room and will traverse the room and stand with my back against the wall by the doorway into the kitchen. This location will give me the best view of living room and will provide me the best location to pie the kitchen. Once I'm against the wall, my focus will be on the outside doorway. You will come into the room, holding your pistol in the low ready position and head toward me while covering the kitchen door. He does what he described. I can tell he's ready and head into the room, holding my pistol in the low ready position and cover the kitchen door. I reach the wall, turn, put my back against the wall and stand next to Ben. He continues, normally you would cover the outside doorway we just came in. But since the horses are out there, I want you to watch me. He pulls his rifle up to firing position, then lowers it, so it's still touching his shoulder and is facing the ground, pointing just slightly across his body. Ben says, this is called indoor ready position. You use it in a close tight area or where you don't want to show your gun around a corner and telegraph your position. You bring the gun up to your shoulder, then drop it so it's almost pointed at the ground but angled sideways across your body so you don't accidentally shoot your foot. Again, it keeps the gun from preceding you around the corner. The problem is if someone is around the corner, you might not be able to get the gun on target without stepping back. In that case, it might actually be better to use your handgun to clear the corner. Now I will pie the doorway to the kitchen. I watch again as he carefully moves across the doorway, making sure not to expose too much of his body at once. It takes forever, but he finally reaches the far side of the doorway and says, I was able to pie most of the hallway to the bedrooms and the door to the utility room. That's why it took so long. I'm going to enter the room, and then because I was able to pie the doorway to the hallway, I'm going to back into the corner just to the right of the doorway. Again, you would normally cover my 6 by keeping an eye on the outside door. I ask, where should I go when I enter the room? He answers, I want you to face down the hallway, head towards the refrigerator and put your back up against the side of the refrigerator. This position will let you cover my 6 while I head down the hallway and will also keep you from being exposed to the utility room door. After he takes his corner in the room, I quickly enter the room and take my position. I'm beginning to understand how this is all working. It's sort of like bounding Overwatch on steroids. Ben moves up to my position, actually leans against me and says, okay, we're going to clear the bedrooms and the bathrooms. You are to stay outside of the bedrooms. I will move adjacent to the doorway of the first bedroom, and this time you will SLLS and cover my 6, because I'm just going to pie the doorways like you've already seen me do. I say, I bet you want me to cover your 6 because someone could come in the back of the house. He says, yes, you're exactly right. Even though I'm sure no one's here, it doesn't mean someone can't show up and walk into the house. This time I'm serious about SLLSing, and I have no problem being bored. Ben says, Stacy, you're in the best spot to cover my 6. Stay here while I clear the rest of the bedrooms. And watch how I switch from rifle to pistol. I watch as his left hand stays on the forearm of the rifle with the barrel pointing towards the ceiling. He reaches back with his right hand, draws his pistol and remarks, you switch to pistol when you're going into a very small and tight area because the length of a rifle then becomes a hindrance. However, when you sling your rifle over your back, like you did earlier, you totally take the rifle out of service. We haven't talked about Bug's backup guns, but for right now realize your pistol is the backup gun for your rifle, and the rifle, when you're using the pistol, is the backup gun for your pistol. See how easily and quickly I switch between the two. I observe as he switches between his rifle and his pistol quickly and with minimal movement. It's like watching a ballerina. In fact, the way Bin's move through the house is like a dance, a deadly dance. I smile at him, touch his arm and say, Bin, I bet you're a really good dancer because you move through this house just like you were dancing. He looks at me and continues, remember when you practice your tactical skills, don't try to be fast because that will just slow you up. Instead, try to be smooth. If you're smooth, the speed will naturally follow. Bin switches to his pistol, keeps his rifle forearm in his left hand, and moves down the hallway. I take just a second to let my eyes linger on Bin as he leaves. I like this position, other than one thing. Something smells really bad. I mean like rip your eyeballs out through your nose bad. And it's worse down the hallway where Bin went. He returns and brings even more of the nasty odor with him like a tail. I gag and say, what's that smell? Bin answers, you don't really want to know. Okay, the only room left is the utility room, and I'm going to let you clear it so you're in charge. I think for a moment and say, since you're watching my butt, you should be back in the corner you first came in. But I bet you should pie the refrigerator looking towards the utility room door first. Bin answers, that's close, but you're going to pie the refrigerator looking towards the door first while I cover your 6 down the hallway. Then you're going to pie the door leading into the living room while I cover your 6 from the hallway and utility room door. Then you will move to the corner. Once you're in place, then you will cover my 6 while I join you. Finally, you will move across the room while I cover your 6 and take up a position beside the utility room door. Once you're there, then I will join you. Remember, this isn't a race, so take as much time as you need. I do as told and reach the corner, then Bin joins me. I say, cover my butt, and move adjacent to the utility room door and motion for Bin. He joins me. I pie the utility room and take up the far corner. Then I cover his 6 as he joins me and he says, that was a very good job, but you might have gone just a bit too fast. Present Bin, IEDs. We're finished clearing the house. Stacy's looking pretty green and comments, the smell coming from those back bedrooms. I was glad she didn't see what was inside. I interrupt, yeah, I know, try not to think about it. With the horses out front, I'm sure no one's entered the house, so I say, let's head back out front so I can figure out the IEDs. She needs something to take her mind off the smell, so I state, Stacy, you need to stand watch on the front porch while I try to figure out what triggers these IEDs. She answers, you'd better be careful. You already have one bad leg, and I sure as heck don't have enough blood to give you if you blow up your other leg. I chuckle to myself. Women are all the same since they love to boss men around. Yet one more reason why Bo is better than a woman. I reply, are you still feeling some effects from Dorothy taking too much blood? She answers, yeah, just a little bit. I remind her, make sure to stay hydrated and it will help. I drop all my gear on the porch except for one AK, walk down the front path, and find the spot from last night where Stacy shot. I see 2 small craters in the ground, and in the daylight I can see there's a 2x4 on its side with holes in it that hold the shotgun shells. Now this is interesting. I squat beside the sidewalk and hear Bo making some noise. I look over and see he's snorting and pawing the ground. Stacy says, Bo says doesn't like what you're doing any better than I do. I decide that I was wrong. Sometimes Bo is just like a woman. I ignore all the distractions, lie on the path, pull out my K-bar. I'm sure as hell not getting my hands anywhere close to the IEDs, and begin to probe the ground. I easily define the edges of the 2x4 and then the top of a shotgun shell. Well, so far I haven't blown the hell out myself. That's a good sign. Present, Stacy, Opland. I'm not sure which one of us is more worried about Bin, me or Bo. Bin's messing with the IEDs. Bo's stamping the ground and snorting, and I need to pee. What the heck is it about fighting that makes me want to pee so often? It's really annoying and makes it hard to SLLS. I'm trying my best to SLLS and not just watch Bin. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I hear a noise to the right. I look over and see it's just a squirrel, then I hear a bang and Bin yells. I run off the porch towards Bin. See Bo headed up the path from the other direction and demand, Bin, are you hurt? He jumps up, laughs, and says, hell no, I'm fine. I triggered that shotgun shell myself after cutting the top off and taking out all the buckshot. This guy was a genius. I complain, you should have warned me before you did that. You almost scared the pee out of me. He scratches Bo to calm him, and I secretly wish he'd hug me to help calm my beating heart. He says, sorry about that, but I figured out how they are triggered, and now I just need to find a way to turn them off. If you need a bathroom break, I will stand watch until you get back. I respond, thanks, and head down the path and across the road towards the bushes. Ben asks, you do remember there are toilets in the house, don't you? I reply, and after what the banditos did in there, I sure in heck won't use them. I'd probably catch something. Ben laughs as I walk away. Present Ben, IEDs. Damn, Stacy has to pee more than anyone I've ever known. It must be her reaction to fear, and I sure hope it ends soon because we're not stopping for her to pee all the time. Yeah, this sapper was a genius about how he set up these shotgun shell IEDs. The whole IED consists of two 2x4s setting on top of each other with about an eighth of an inch gap between them. The top 2x4 has holes drilled every 12 inches apart, just the size of the shotgun shell case. The bottom 2x4 has nails protruding right at the primers of the shotgun shells. When I first discovered this, I thought that wow, it's going to take a lot of pressure to deflect the top 2x4 enough to set off the shotgun shell. But as I dug out the dirt and probed some more, I found the wires. Yeah, a common wire attached to the metal base of each shotgun shell, and also a different common wire attached to each nail. The sapper had reloaded the shotgun shells with electric primers. Now where the hell did he get those, since they're hard as hell to get? And an even bigger question, where the hell is his reloading equipment? So it only takes about 15 pounds of pressure to trigger his IED, whereas if he had left the normal primers in the shotgun shells, I'm not sure they would have triggered at all. And somewhere there has to be a kill switch to turn them off. Now finding the switch becomes my highest priority. I continue to SLLS and ponder as Stacy walks up. She says, "Sorry I bitched at you before, when you set off the IED, but you really scared me." I apologize. "No, you were right. I should have warned you first, and I won't make that mistake again." She smiles and asks, "So is everything safe?" I reply, "Not yet. They are triggered electrically, but I don't have any idea where the switch is to turn them off." She points to the power pole and says, "Can't you just shut down all the power?" I look at the location of the pole and answer, "Well, if I could get to the pole, I probably could. But I'm not sure I could get there without setting off an IED. We can try all the circuit breakers in the house, but I'm sure they're not on a circuit breaker. If they were, they'd pop the breaker every time you set one off. Would you take Bo back by the other horses and stand watch while I go shut of the circuit breakers?" She smiles at me and says, "You bet. I'll watch your butt." I remind her again, "That's cover my 6. Present. Stacy." SLLSing again. No, Ben's wrong this time. I meant what I said and take a short break from SLLSing to watch his, but as he walks into the house, very nice. Now I can cover his 6. It seems as if I'm either scared as heck, even going into the house to clear it again had me scared, or I'm SLLSing and fighting boredom. I wonder if this is what war is like all the time, or if I get stuck SLLSing because I'm practically still a civi. I'm a little hungry, so I check my watch and wonder where the heck the morning went since it's already lunchtime. I've been eating like a horse lately, and I hope I'm not getting fat. I reach down, pull up my shirt, and check. Oh wow, where did that 6-pack come from? I pinch and can barely grab anything at all. Phew. I guess I'm not getting fat. I continue standing watch, pull out a couple of MREs and start cooking them. I'm sure getting tired of MREs. Too bad Ben's cooking destroyed the kitchen. Otherwise, I'd whip us up a real meal. Ben comes back out of the house and describes his actions. I've killed the main power. He notices I'm making MREs and says, "Thanks, I was getting hungry. Now I'm going to mess around with the IEDs like I did before. If I set one off, don't be scared and make sure you hold on to Bo." I answer, "Thanks for the warning this time." And I continue to SLLS. Ben's digging around in the dirt again and announces, "Okay, I'm going to see if killing the main breaker worked." There's a big bang and I answer, "Well, I guess it didn't. Why don't you leave it for now and come and get some lunch?" He walks up. I hand him his MRE. Open mine, and he says, "Thanks for making the MREs." Then gives me a peculiar smile. Present, Ben. Lunch. I grin and watch Stacy closely. She takes a bite of her MRE, spits it out and yells, "Oh my God, that is the nastiest food I've ever eaten." I start laughing. "Yep, you finally chose the worst MRE ever made. Country Captain Chicken." She responds, It's not even edible." I answer, "Here, take mine and I will fix this up and eat it because we don't throw away food during a war." I take it and begin to doctor it up, but this time I don't have any wine, so while it will be better, it won't be perfect. I decide I don't like standing around in the open, so I say, let's not just stand around and do nothing while we're eating. One of the things we learned in the sandbox was if you stood around in the open, you became a target. Let's head around back and take a look at the barn. I hope it's not as screwed up as the house. We head around back, making sure to stay on the path with the horse entourage following us. As we approach the barn, I realize it isn't a barn at all. Stacy notices too and asks, "That's the funniest looking barn I've ever seen. It looks more like a bomb shelter." I nod my head and say, "That's because it's not a barn, it's a bunker." Seeing the bunker reminds me of what Ms. Donaldson did when she repaired my cabin after the terrors blew it to hell. She did a hell of a nice job fixing things up. I really need to get back to my cabin since I have some things buried that might come in handy. Oh well, that will have to wait while I have a bunker to break into. I look at the door and realize this isn't going to be easy. I observe, "Present, Stacy." "The barn." Ben says, "Stacy." The banditos tried like hell to get into this bunker but failed. Look, they even shot at the door and the lock and couldn't get in. I blurred out without thinking, well, how come shooting the door didn't work? It does on the TV shows I've seen. Ben answers, Stacy, don't believe anything you see on TV. If we believe what's on TV, then, because you're a teenager, you'd have to be a whiny, annoying bitch instead of a beautiful and smart young lady. In the sandbox, we carried shotguns with special breaching rounds to open doors, and they worked on most doors. But this door is a thick steel door, and they wouldn't even begin to open this door. Is it possible to feel stupid and excited at the same time? I really put my foot in my mouth with the TV question, but again Ben informed me of my mistake without making me feel like a total idiot. Then he said I was beautiful and smart? Perhaps my comments are starting. No, now's not the time, so I push the thoughts out of my mind. Notice Ben is pulling something out of his evade pack and ask, well then how are we going to get into the barn? I mean bunker? Ben keeps examining the lock. He has a huge ring of keys in his hand and he explains, well, if the banditos haven't screwed up the lock too much and if I have a key to fit it, then I'm going to bump the lock. But before I start, you need to take the horses and move to the side of the house. I don't understand, so I ask, first, what is bump the lock? Is that some sort of new dance? And second, why do you want me to move the horses over to the side of the house? Ben says, if you have the right key, you can open virtually any lock in about 30 seconds by taking that special key, called a bump key, inserting it into the lock and tapping the key lightly with something while you turn the key. And with this guy being a sapper, I can't be sure the bunker isn't booby-trapped, so I want you, and the horse is a safe distance away. Doh. What's happened the last few minutes? I've been having huge blonde moments and started asking stupid questions. Once again, Ben doesn't make fun of me. Oh shoot. I know why. I've been distracted with my fantasies and haven't even been SLLSing. I wonder if Ben's noticed. Now that's the most stupid blonde question ever. Ben notices everything. I say preemptively, Ben, I want to apologize for the last 10 minutes. I've been distracted, asked silly questions, and haven't even been SLLSing. He simply says, yeah, I noticed you were distracted. It occasionally happens, and I've had your six while you were wool gathering. But I'm glad you're back because I need you. Now move your butt, and the horse is over by the side of the house. I smile and respond, yes, sir. Thanks for watching my butt. And begin heading towards the side of the house with the horses. Ben reminds, that's your six. And I think, no, that's my butt, and I know you're watching it. With everything blowing up around here, I'm really concerned as I lead the horses to the side of the house and wonder why the heck we just don't leave this place. But I'm not about ready to ask yet one more stupid question. Present Ben, the bunker. Damn. Sneaky women. I should have known better. I finally figure out that Stacy is using not-so-subtle subliminal suggestions because she wants me to watch her butt, which I have to admit is a pretty nice ass. In fact, it may even be better than Ms. Donaldson's butt. Now that's an image. Stacy and Ms. Donaldson having a butt off. My fantasy quickly descends. No, I need to put those sorts of thoughts out of my mind. Damn. She has feelings for me. I think back and try to remember when it started and can't. I will need to fix this problem before it gets worse, but first I need to see if I can get into this bunker. No one builds a bunker like this, unless they have something of great value to protect, and I want to know what that something is. I do have a bump key for this lock. I make sure Stacy and the horses are what I hope is a safe distance from the bunker. Insert the key in the lock and tap the key on the back as I wiggle it in the lock. The key turns. The bunker is unlocked. Now for the dangerous part. There's no way in hell to figure out if this bunker is a death trap with me playing the part of death. I get an idea. I take the cord out of my evade pack, tie it to the door handle, stand on the side of the door away from the way it swings open, with my back pressed against the wall, and slowly pull on the cord. As the door swings open, I hold my breath and listen to see if an alarm beeps. Present. Stacy, the barn. I continue to SLLS and also watch Ben open the door. I'm impressed and feel much better when he stands to the side of the door and uses a rope to open it. I figure it's safe. Start heading back towards Ben with the horses when Ben yells, Stacy, stay where you're at with the horses. I stop, start to ask him why. When, holy frack. Flashback, Ben, end of mission, day 8 spook school. For once I really was glad to be heading back to the school, but not because of the school. It was because soon I would be with Mira. We climbed in the chopper for the short ride back. Jack looked at me and asked, Ben, what's on your mind? I looked at him and knew I couldn't tell him, so I requested, Jack, not right now. We rode the rest of the way in silence. I was shocked when the chopper touched down because Mira wasn't there to greet me. I headed towards my room and said, see you in the morning, Jack. I walked to our room, opened the door, and there she was. Mira saw me, walked towards me and asked, Lance Corporal Blaine, you have been indisposed all day. and you are very late arriving back to my room. Now come inside because there are things which we must discuss." As she turned away from me, I ran up behind her and put her in a guillotine chokehold. She fought like a wild woman for a few seconds before she passed out. But the problem was, now that I caught her, what to do with her? I kept hold of her, looked around the room, and finally figured it out. The desk chair. Like everything else in this school, the desk chair was old, but in this case that was a good thing since it was metal and built like the proverbial Sherman tank. I pulled the chair out with my foot, sat her in the chair, and made sure she was still unconscious. Then I pulled a bunch of tie wraps from my pack and secured her arms and legs to the chair in multiple places. I then gagged the hell out of her. Flashback, Mira. Late afternoon, day 8. I was terrifically troubled. My sister Ira would still not answer her phone. I think she was being a petulant child to make me maximally miffed. The school impeded my resources, and I could not receive adequate information on Bimini. However, there were tragic news reports about the island losing all electrical power and descending into a state of anarchy. If the malodorous major ordered my boyfriend there, and if my boyfriend becomes damaged, I will acquire retribution for all my hostilities on him utilizing very slow and extremely agonizing methods. As I cogitated further about which methods I would employ, there was a knock on my door. Without thinking, I threw open the door, and what in Hades? They had the advantage of surprise, so the battle did not last long. I awoke in a dimly lit room and was tied to the desk chair with many tie wraps, and my mouth was gagged. I was more than maximally miffed. I was astonishingly angry. Flashback, Ben, night 8, Spook School. I called Dave and Buster, the two new guys who replaced Tom and Howard, and told them where I was and what I needed done. I guess they'd been well briefed by Tom and Howard because Buster said, "Damn, didn't you just move into that room?" I answered, "Yeah, I did. But things changed while we were on the mission." I checked the room to make sure there were no other surprises for me, sat on the bed and waited for Sleeping Beauty to wake up. It didn't take long. She woke up, figured out what had happened, and yanked at the restraints on her arms and legs. I looked at her and cautioned, "Ira, you're going to hurt yourself, so stop fighting." Yeah, it wasn't Mira that was in our room. It was her twin sister Ira. That explained why Mira wasn't there to meet me when the chopper landed, but it didn't explain why Ira was here, and more importantly, the question of where Mira was. Flashback, Mira, night 8, Spook School. Even through my gag, I smiled smugly at Kai. During his and Ira's coup, I had vigorously vented my wrath upon him, and now his face was blemished, marked by my multiple hits. I cogitated regarding the current circumstances. Ira discovered the deception about my emotional bond with my boyfriend, and she decided to rectify the situation disregarding my wishes or assistance. I reflected upon her behavior and was troubled about what Ira had planned for my boyfriend. She could be maximally aggressive upon occasion, and I didn't want my boyfriend permanently damaged. I continued fighting my restraints and producing noise. Kai said, "Mira, do not struggle, or you will damage yourself, and do not continue to make noise." But I maintained hope. Flashback, Ben, night 8, Spook School. The guys cleared all my gear out of Myra's room, while Ira glared daggers at us. Dave looked at her and said, "Damn, as pissed as she is at you, it's a good thing you're clearing out of the room, because I'd say you've got a tiger by the tail." Yeah, they were right. From the little I'd gleaned from Mira about her sister, I was in deep shit. But if she'd hurt Mira, then she was in even deeper shit. I walked over to her, and even tied to the chair, she tried to lunge at me. I said, "Ira, I'd hope to meet you someday on friendlier terms. I'm going to take the gag out of your mouth, and I want to know what the hell you did to Mira." I took the gag out and she yelled, "Lance Corporal Blaine, go train a cactus. You have not become aware yet that you are a demised man." I didn't think it would work, but I figured it was worth a try. She fought like crazy, and even bit me as I put the gag back in her mouth. She glared at me. I glared back and stated, "Ira, I will find Mira, and then we will decide what we're going to do with you." She fought as I dragged her chair over to the bed. Then I pulled some rope out of my pack and tied the chair to the bunk bed in such a way that Ira couldn't tip the chair over. After what I'd done to Ira, if she escaped, I knew it would be lethal for me. The only one who could handle her now would be Mira. Ira watched as I made a big show out of preparing my rifle and pistol. I looked at her and said, "If anyone gives me any crap when I find Mira, or if she's been hurt, they're dead, and that goes double for you." Flashback, Ira, night 8, Spook School. I was reflexively relieved when Lance Corporal Blaine departed Myra's room. I was agonizingly angry, not just with him but more at myself. I had not heeded my sister Myra's verbiage concerning Lance Corporal Blaine's skills. I assumed her love of puppy towards him had clouded her ability to adequately analyze his danger plateau. Somehow he successfully ascertained my identity and assaulted my corporeal self. However, I perceived rapidly at how, even though he did not know me, he had taken precautions when he bound me with the nylon restraints. He used very wide wraps and even placed padding between the restraints and my flesh so I would not injure my corporeal self. I was shamed because I had not afforded my sister Mira the same comforts. A few tears escaped my ocular units. Flashback, Ben Night 8 Spook School. I wasn't sure where they took Mira, but I had an idea. While I didn't know Ira, I knew Mira, and Mira was one of the most logical women I knew. Her sister Ira would probably have similar traits. They needed someplace nearby to stash Mira, because they couldn't risk being seen taking her. I thought and decided it must be Myra's old room, the one the blood bomb destroyed. I was quite sure it was Maria that sent the blood bomb, but I was the one that paid the janitor a hell of a lot of money to clean the room and to keep the commandant and Mr. Smith from knowing about it. I was surprised because the room was empty, so I thought some more. What would Mira do? Oh shit, no. I know exactly where Mira is. Ira hit her right under my nose and also rubbed my nose in it. I ran down the hallway, slowed as I approached the room, and tested the door. It was locked, however. I did hear someone making noise. Was it Mira? Was she making noise because she heard me at the door? I knew I had the right room when I heard Kai as he cautioned, Mira, do not struggle, or you will damage yourself, and do not continue to make noise. Yes, that was my girl Mira. She was making noise to mask my attack. My best guess was only Ira, and Kai came to the school because more people would have caused a commotion. But that was their mistake because I could take Kai in a fight any day of the week. Mira kept making a hell of a racket. I set down my rifle, took out my key, opened the door, and flew into the room. Kai made a huge tactical mistake since had his back toward the door. I took him out with a smashing blow to the back of his head. Flashback, Mira, Night 8 Spook School. I was so possessively proud. My wonderful boyfriend somehow evaded my sister's sinister trap, ascertained I was being held hostage in Sergeant Reynolds' room. The sergeant was restrained and still unconscious from Kai's blow, and had successfully and decisively defeated Kai. He was my glorious shining knight, and I smiled radiantly at him. He came up to me and inquired, Mira, are you okay? Silly man, he forgot to take out my gag. I made some noise. He removed the gag and I answered, my boyfriend, I was so overly concerned about you. How did you know? He interrupted me, damn it. Look at your arms. They're a mess from the tie wraps. I think I'm going to go back and beat your sister for what she did to you. I replied as he started to cut the ties, my boyfriend. I am fine now that you have rescued me, but please do not vent your anger upon my sister. He totally freed me and I continued. I have many unanswered questions for you, but first I must reward you. Flashback, Jack, Night 8 Spook School. What the hell? The last thing I remembered was walking through the door, and then someone clobbered the hell out of me. Now I'm tied up and gagged on my bed, and hear something that sounds like a cow in heat. I roll over and Mira is attacking the hell out of Ben. No, it looks more like they're about ready to. Not the hell on the floor of my room, they aren't. I started making a hell of a lot of noise of my own. Mira sat up and said, Flashback, Mira, Night 8 Spook School. For once my boyfriend was not only responding to my amorous advances, he enthusiastically enabled me. I might finally get. Oh no, Sergeant Reynolds awakened. I rose and bitterly complained, Stinky Sergeant Reynolds, you have the most inopportune timing in the galaxy. My boyfriend jumped up, rudely dumped me on the floor and inquired, Jack, how the hell are you? Sergeant Reynolds attempted to tell him, but once again my distracted boyfriend forgot about the gag. He walked over to him, removed his gag, and Sergeant Reynolds complained, what the hell's going on here? Mira, did you knock me out? I responded indignantly, I most certainly did not. I was captured by my sister and Kai, and he is the one who rendered you unconscious. Sergeant Reynolds demanded, let me go so I can kick his butt. My boyfriend laughed, Jack, I kicked his and Ira's, but so hard they need a case of hemorrhoid cream just to sit down again. That reminded me of my sister. Just as Sergeant Reynolds felt he needed to apply extreme force to Kai's derriere, I need to apply my lower appendage to Ira's posterior orifice. I queried, boyfriend, just what did you do to my sister, and where is she? He grinned. I put her in a guillotine chokehold and left her gagged and tied up in your room. Her position appears very similar to how she and Kai tied you to the chair. As I was tremendously curious, I sidled up to my boyfriend and asked, we are identical twins. How did you ascertain it was Ira and not myself? He grinned at me and explained, Mira, you two are not identical twins, but you are mirror image twins. She's right-handed and you're left-handed. Your faces aren't exactly the same and she doesn't smell like you do. I was shocked he correctly perceived our diminutive differences, but also pretended to be slightly offended and demanded, are you informing me I smell undesirable? He laughed in response. No, Mira, I love the way you smell. We were not able to finish because Sergeant Reynolds again interrupted. If you two are through playing patty cake, how about cutting me loose so I can kick Kai's but some more? My boyfriend started to remove Sergeant Reynolds' restraints and I said, I must go and tend to my sister. I will see you in our room later, my boyfriend. Then I gave him a very promise-filled kiss and departed the room. Flashback, Jack, Night 8 Spook School. Ben cut me loose. Mira left the room and I said, damn, she bought that lie of yours. He looked at me and said, Jack, if you're smart, you'll get the hell out of Dodge with me. I've never seen a woman looked more pissed off than Ira. When Mira finally lets her go, she's going to be out for blood. I answered, Ben, you should know that hell hath no fury like that of a woman. Not only is Ira going to be pissed off at you, Myra's going to be pissed off that you've left her room again. Shit, I'm not hanging around and taking their wrath. Let's get Kai tied up and figure out someplace to hide out. We start restraining Kai and Ben answered, Jack, I already have a great hideout for me, and I know you're welcome for at least tonight. But if you know what the hell is good for you, you will never tell Mira where I'm staying. Now grab some gear and let's get the hell out of here. Flashback, Mira, Night 8 Spook School. I take my time heading to our room. My wonderful boyfriend served my sister a sweet, very cold platter of revenge, and I was going to gloriously gloat at her discomfort. Then I will make her promise to never again interfere with my relationship with my boyfriend. Oh, I know she came here to rescue me from what she incorrectly perceived to be a fate worse than demise. Now I would need to rescue her from my wonderful boyfriend. She would be most embarrassed and distressed that a mere male deciphered her deception and then easily neutralized her. I walked into our room and immediately noticed she was restrained to the chair and the chair secured to the bed. I paced in front of her and teased, in our own special language, aha, aha. I perceive my sister did not heed my warnings about Lance Corporal Blaine's skills, and it seems to me she has been captured. I wonder how it must feel to be thusly restrained. Wait, did not my own sister perform the same restraining exercise upon me? No, wait, she did not exercise the same care for me as the Lance Corporal exhibited for her. I showed her the many welts on my arms from her tie wraps and continued, yes, it seems that my Lance Corporal cares more for my own sister than she cares for me. Flashback, Ira, Night 8 Spook School. I was truly ashamed, not just for being so easily captured by Myra's Lance Corporal Blaine, but also for not exercising the same care for her as he performed for me. Yes, Mira was right. I did make such a monstrous mistake that had her Lance Corporal decided to end my life, he easily could have. I was angrier at my failures than anything else. I did want a rematch with the Lance Corporal, but I must also perceive how he could discern I was not Mira. A few salty tears burnt my cheeks. Flashback, Mira, Night 8 Spook School. Oh no, perhaps I have exceeded the distance traveled. My sister Ira is crying, and I did not mean to inflict such discomfiture. I quickly removed her gag and she pleaded, please forgive me, my sister. I hugged her and said, of course, my sister. I am sorry I made you cry. Ira said, please loosen my bonds, and then I will help you ascertain where your Lance Corporal is abiding this night. I loosened her bonds, perceiving how she was not injured by them as I was. I must thank my boyfriend for being so caring, and queried, Ira, I do not comprehend what you are verbalizing. She answered, my sister, did you not notice your Lance Corporal's equipment was removed from the room? I frantically surveyed the room and determined Ira was correct. I was so busy concentrating on my sister, I failed to notice my boyfriend's gear had once again disappeared from our room. I asked, Ira, what information do you have on this? She replied, Mira, 2 other men removed all his gear, and they both slightly teased me about my predicament. I asked, my sister, do you have any information as to where they relocated the gear? Ira answered, no, my sister, however I will assist you in searching for him and his gear. I would suggest we interrogate Sergeant Reynolds first. I kissed my sister on the cheek and answered, Ira, that is an excellent idea. I just left the 2 of them in the sergeant's room. The sergeant wanted to abuse Kai for his part in this failed kidnapping. We ran down to stinky Sergeant Reynolds' room, but found it was unoccupied except for Kai. But once again my boyfriend had left me one of his damn notes. I read it and dropped it to the floor. Flashback, Jack, Night 8. Ben was right. Mira was hard enough to handle, but the thought of Mira and a twin sister Ira was too much to bear. So I grabbed my small go bag, we jumped in the car and left the school. I asked, okay, where are we going? Ben answered, Jack, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. So just be glad we're away from the school. I questioned, but won't we have to face Mira and Ira tomorrow? He replied, Jack, I can't see how Ira can stay around. It would be too hard to explain why there are two Miras at the school. I remembered all the butt kickings I got from Mira and continued. Okay, then what about Mira? Won't she be pissed about things? He simply stated, Jack, I can handle Mira. I shut my mouth and decided. Okay, if you think you can handle her, go for it. Flashback, Charlie, night 8. I was certainly glad I didn't answer the door in my teddy, or even less, because this time Ben had company with him. Jack tagged along. I was probably too crabby when I demanded, Ben, what's he doing here? He gave me that sad, lonely, puppy dog look which melted my heart and answered, Charlie, all hell broke loose at the school and it isn't safe for Jack to stay by himself tonight. So I told him he could stay here tonight. But don't worry, he can have the guest bedroom and I will sleep on the couch. I really wanted Ben to sleep with me, but I knew that wasn't going to happen tonight. I responded, well, Ben, your friends explained to me the situation and have already delivered all your gear. It's in the extra bedroom. I understand why Jack needs to stay here, and he's welcome, but just for tonight. Jack answered, thanks, Charlie. I owe you one. I turned, walked towards my bedroom, tried to hide my anger and said, well, I need all the beauty sleep I can get. Ben, you know where everything is. I'm going to sleep. Flashback, Jack, night 8. I headed to the bar, grabbed the bottle of bourbon and stated, I don't know about you, but after today I could use a drink. Ben replied, yeah, I'd take 1.5 fingers, but we need to make sure we put the bourbon back and use coasters. Charlie doesn't like it if we leave rings on her furniture. I poured our drinks and thought, you know women like that. I asked, well, let's see my room for the night. Ben led me into the second bedroom. It was a mess and was in the middle of a huge remodel. I said, I sure as hell don't know what went on in here, but it sure looks like I can't sleep here. Ben poked around some and then said, Jack, I think Charlie had a blood bomb go off in here, just like in Myra's room. You can take the couch for the night and I will sleep on the floor. We finished our drinks and hit the sack exhausted. I was having a great dream about, what the hell? Dear listeners, next part of the story will be released soon. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.